Hello there, my name is Bruce Rain from Breakers Creations, and thank you for joining me today. How is everyone? And sound check and picture check and everything, everyone getting me nice and loud and clear and all that sort of things and stuff and such. I hope everyone is well on this, well for me, very, very nice Saturday morning, 1st of August. One more month of winter to go. So, well, that microscope looks familiar. Yes, a little bit different to yours, Steve, but certainly very familiar. So, Steve, Mac 84, I don't know, am I allowed to let the cat out of the bag, Steve? Or are you keeping it as a secret for your viewers? So, well, you'd probably be able to figure it out by now. But, yes, Steve, Mac 84, has made a recent purchase that will mean that his videos start looking a lot better. So, yeah, something to look forward to for the Mac 84 viewers. Anyone who hasn't subscribed to his channel, jump across and please do that, because he's got some great fun content if you like the vintage Mac stuff. So, a quick shout out to everyone who is currently watching. If you are new to the stream, please jump on and say hello. Just a quick reminder that I welcome people asking questions throughout it. If you want to know stuff about the sort of the vintage Macs that I work on, or the soldering that I do, or anything like that, please feel free to jump on and ask some questions. I mean, they need to be relevant questions. I'd rather you didn't jump on and say, oh, excuse me, but the mixture in my 1959 Plymouth is a little bit rich. Can you help me with that? Relevant questions, ideally. So, I'm going to just do a quick little shout out to the people who are watching at the moment. Jay, hello. The House of Moth. Hello to you. Thank you for joining. Mr. Fahrenheit, hello. Steve, hello. Mac 84. Crazy Tech Reviews, hello. GT, hello. Wow, look at that. We've got some Mac Yackers here today. Fizzbin, hello. Zombie Geek 33, hello. Action Retro, hello. Hello, Action Retro. It's a long time no speak. Okay. Yep, I think that's it. I think I said hello to everyone. If I missed anyone, sorry. Missed a bunch of these. Did I miss the ultrasonic cleaner? No, you didn't. And in actual fact, the ultrasonic cleaner is not going to be a live stream when I do that. I'm going to be doing that as a pre-recorded video, because I really want to be able to spend the time to go over things and properly script it and give information and that. So now, just a quick mention to anyone who oh, CJ Pops, hello, g'day. To anyone who is a regular viewer of my streams, they may have noticed that I didn't live stream last weekend, and I do apologise for that. Basically, on the Saturday I had a dental appointment in the morning, so I missed out, and then on the Sunday I had some socialising to do. I was catching up with an old friend for lunch, so it just took away all my opportunity to live stream, unfortunately. So I do apologise to folks, but we're back on board today. Nito, hello, welcome. Saw your mention in the Computer Clan video. Very nice. Thank you very much. Yes, so just a quick mention there. There was Computer Clan, Crazy Ken. He released a video yesterday on what makes computers die, and Steve and I did a little bit of sort of consulting work for him with that. We got together and we talked about common points of failure and explaining, sort of what these things are and what they do and all that sort of stuff. And Ken incorporated those in the video and gave us a little cred for doing so, which was very nice of him. Then again, it was very nice of us to help him out in that way, wasn't it? My workshop is still unbelievably messy, and I apologise for that in advance. And it's just got to do with the fact that I come down here, I do the work, and then, I'm all clapped out, and I sort of I don't do the cleaning. So sorry, we'll just have to cope. Did he pay me? No, but he did give me credits, so that's fine. I'm fine with that. So my last live stream, I was working on a couple of Mac Plus analog boards. I wasn't having a lot of luck with either. And Trina, hello, welcome. Yeah, so my last live stream, I was working on a couple of Mac Plus analog boards, and we found a busted resistor, R55 resistor on the international analog board, replaced on one of them, and it still didn't work. I then found this. See if I can get a nice zoomed in view of this. Zoom, 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 zoom. Somehow or other, providing commentary for the zoom seems to make it go faster. This here, for folks who haven't seen one before, is called a flyback transformer. And these, if you have a look just at the side here, can you see how that's bent in there? See how it's going in at an angle? They're not meant to be like that. That's melted. So that was one cause of the problem. The flyback transformer is shot. So this thing here now will need to get thrown in the bin. And the other problem it had, and these problems regularly go hand in hand. One causes the failure of the other. The other problem I had was this guy here, which is a horizontal deflection transistor. Once again, these are a common failing in CRTs. So these two died. So I have replaced these in that Mac Plus analog board, and it is now working beautifully. The second Mac Plus analog board I'm still having trouble with. That was the one that was extremely sort of dirty. I've given it a really good clean. I've recapped it. I've now got to go in and replace a few components. So again, I've checked all the resistors on that, but a common failing on those is the old Xena diodes. And so I've got a bunch of replacements. I'm going to replace those, and hopefully that will sort it out. You can test diodes using a multimeter, but it's a lot harder to test a Xena diode. I'll say Xena from now on, hey? Because a diode typically allows current to go in one direction, but blocks it from going in the other direction. Whereas a Xena diode allows current to go in one direction, blocks current in the other direction until it reaches a particular voltage. Once it then reaches that voltage, it then allows flow through. So that's a lot harder to test to see whether it's doing that unless you actually have a load on it. So you can't just get your multimeter and go into diode test mode and do it that way. So anyhow, I'm just going to, they're so cheap, I'm just going to replace all the Xena diodes on it anyway. I got myself a new multimeter. I typically use my Fluke multimeter here, which I love. It's a great unit, awesome. But I wanted one that was a little bit more portable, so I bought myself this absolutely cute, tiny, weeny little multimeter. So I might even do a few tests today to see how it's going, because I haven't tested it against the Fluke to see if it's accurate, but it is sure cute. Look at it. Anyhow. Okay, so if your workshop isn't unbelievably messy, then you must be superhuman. Yes, well, yes. It does get to the point sometimes where I just get driven bananas, and then I go, I've got to clean this place and get onto it. But as I say, I've just had so much stuff at the moment. I've had a lot of work that's been eating up a lot of my time. For instance, those Mac Plus analog boards. I mean, I worked on them for a good day. Because there were just so many little problems and things with them, and testing and all that sort of stuff. Sorry, my microphone, I think, is rubbing on my shirt. Sorry. What exactly causes a waving pattern in the classic machines? Because I have that on mine alongside a checkerboard. Yeah, that's a failed logic board and a failed analog board. So how about that? You get the double whammy with the old classic. So classic analog boards are made with very bad capacitors, probably, I think, because they were during the capacitor plague period, that time when there were a lot of really bad capacitors on the market. So the analog board's got these great big electrolytic capacitors which leak terribly, and that's what's going to give you the wavy picture and stuff like that. And the checkerboard is because the logic board needs recapping. So yeah, now you just have to decide whether it's worth it to fix it up. So where did you get the cute little multimeter from? I bought this on eBay. I bought it on eBay, and I struggled with it a bit. I ordered it ages ago. Because I say, I've got my big one down here, but I wanted a portable one for like up in the house, because there are times when I'm just wanting to test things, and I can't be bothered coming down here. I mean, I've got 3 multimeters, but I just wanted a cute little portable one that I could just tuck away, or if I am going to do something at someone else's house, I'm helping someone out, I can take this with me. So I just picked this up on eBay. This is a Sanwa, S-A-N-W-A, and it is called a PM3. Now, I got a recommendation on this one from from what's his name, David Jones' EEV blogs. He was testing out portable multimeters, and this was one of the ones that he came up and said was quite good. I mean, there were some other ones which he recommended higher, but they were bigger than this. And when it comes to this little size, this is one that I think is the bestest. When you adjusted your mic, we couldn't hear it. Not sure it's the mic you're currently using. Audio is still good though. I've actually got both mics on at the moment. So if I do this 1 2 3 1 2 3, I'm just coming through this mic, and if I switch this on, I'm now coming through this mic as well. And I've just done that because a couple of times while I've been doing my live streams, I have lost sound entirely, and that's because the battery in my little wireless thingy has gone flat. And so I thought I'll go with the two mics. If I'm sitting here, I'm getting nice audio coming from that mic. If I get up, turn around, go fiddle with the ultrasonic cleaner or something, you can still hear me as I'm up there. So anyhow, anyhow, this is it's just a lovely little thing. And what I will also say about this multimeter is that it actually is a really full-featured thing. I mean, you've obviously got your DC, you got your AC, and then over here on this little last dot, you've got just about every testing you're ever going to want to do. You've got your resistance testing, you've then got your diode testing, so you can check for voltage drop. You've got your beepity beep mode, and it's a reasonable beepity beep. I'll just give you a little demo of how beepity beepy it is. It goes like that. Yeah, reasonably. I mean, I can hear it quite well. So you got your beepity beep mode, and then you've got your capacitance mode, and I think that's it. Yeah, that's basically all you're going to need from any general multimeter. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. As I say, I want to compare it with the Fluke to see what, you know, how accurate it is. But I just think it's a really cute little multimeter. So anyhow, there we go. Yeah, but yes, purchased off eBay. I just did a search for the Sanwa PM3, and it came up. I had trouble with it. I was waiting literally for months. I ended up contacting the seller, and he said, "Oh, well, can you check with your local post office to see if it's been delivered?" And because there was a tracking number with the thing, the tracking showed that it hadn't even left the country. It hadn't even left China. So I said, "Look, you know, it's not in Australia. It's still in China. Can you check with your delivery company rather than me checking with my Australian post office?" And he then came back to me and he said, "Yes, you're right. It's actually been returned to us." He's not sure why. So he sent it again, and this time it came like in about a couple of weeks. So, yeah, anyhow. Oh, boy, I do prattle on at times, don't I? So I'm so sorry about that, people. Today there is an actual purpose for this live stream, and that is I'm going to recap a Macintosh SE 30. I haven't done one of these in quite some time. They are probably the second most recapped computer I get sent to me. The most being the Color Classic. That's definitely the one. I get more Color Classic boards than any other board. And then the next after that is probably... Is this just the biggest anti-static bag you've ever seen? I mean, what do you reckon it was originally made for? Anyhow, so yeah, I'll just do the little side view and zoom out a little bit so we can have a look at this gorgeous board. So the Color Classic is the most commonly recapped, and then the SE30, and then probably LC575 after that. Yeah, it's everyone loves the SE30. Well, most people do. I mean, I'm sure there are some haters out there, but most people seem to like the SE30. And I think one of the main reasons why it is so adored is because it's a compact Mac. It's the original kind of form factor with the 9-inch screen and the sort of the well-known compact Mac shape, and it is massively upgradable up to 128 megabytes of RAM on a little tiny board like this. And the funny thing about that is that when you look at computers like the Color Classic or the LC, that were limited to 10 megabytes of RAM, and these things you could take up to 128. Yeah, so anyhow, this one here I think has 8 in it. I'm pretty sure it's 8 ones in there, and obviously it has a ROM sim as well. These are not 32-bit clean ROMs. So if you want to utilize the full 128 megabytes, in actual fact, if you want to utilize anything more than 8 megabytes of RAM in one of these, you'll need to install the Mode 32 control panel, which will then allow you to switch 32-bit memory addressing on in the memory control panel. You can buy a thing called a ROMinator, which is a modern replacement to the ROM, and that is 32-bit clean, so then you don't need Mode 32 if you want to go down that path. What I will say about the ROMinator, though, is one of the things it does, the pre-programmed one, when you get it, it changes some of the sounds, and I'm not a huge fan of the different sounds. So, the chime sound is different, and I don't like it. I don't like change. Paul Nicholas, hello, welcome to the stream. You're doing this recapping video. Let's hope no UE8 issues. Yes, well, you'll be pleased to know that I keep a very large supply of replacement UE8 chips. I've actually got replacements for this whole row. There are, I think, 3 different types of IC here, and I have replacements for every single one of them because they are a very, very common phoning point. The last one I worked on, this chip here, the one right on the end, UG8, was gone. I had to replace that one there. It also had all sorts of other problems, but that's another story. Golden Panda, hello. Welcome to the stream. Could they have found a bigger anti-static bag? As a matter of fact, that's actually my anti-static bag. So I put it in it. When they delivered it without an anti-static bag. They delivered it wrapped in some anti-static bubble wrap. But, I wanted to put it into an anti-static bag while I waited to work on it. And so, yeah, that's my anti-static bag. My ridiculous... Look, I got it from somewhere. I got it probably from a customer sending me something. So, but yeah, it's just insane. What do those chips do? These is all associated with the video circuitry. So pretty much this whole region. So all those chips along there, these 2 here, they're the VRAM. I keep replacements of these as well. They don't go that often, but they do go. All of these here, these are like, this is all video stuff as well. And then I think, yeah, that's the video ROM chip there. So pretty much this whole region. And of course we have all of these caps here. And this guy in particular who likes to leak down, he rains all of his deliciousness onto UE8, which is directly underneath him. And that's why, who was it? It was Paul Nicholas made mention of UE8 because UE8 is a really common problem on these. Now, having said that, I've got no idea if this one works or not. So let's check. I'm just going to bring up my little repairing software, which I've nearly finished. I made my own repair software for tracking all the jobs that I'm doing. And I have added pretty much all the features to it that I want, and it is running really well. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into this job and we're going to go edit, and I'm going to change the status to in progress because it is no longer received. Isn't that fancy? I've just got such fancy stuff. Right, let's have a look at what the customer has said. I've removed logic blocks yesterday. Dislodged capacitor. Okay, the battery pushing no leakage there. Are you filling the battery as well as actual? Okay, so now he might have mentioned this in an earlier message to me, but this one doesn't actually say whether it works or not. I'm pretty sure he did tell me in an earlier email, so I wonder if we can pull that up because it is always nice to know whether what you're working on works or not. Oh, wow, some weird things are going on with my OBS there. Ooh, okay. Right, micro mage repair, hello. Just having a look here, I've got 20 viewers at the moment. As I always say at the beginning of my video, if you happen to miss that, if you are new, please jump on, say hello. And as I say, if you have any questions throughout any of this, please feel free to ask it. This one here, the guy, while he was removing the board, he accidentally knocked this capacitor off. Very common, because these are so heavily corroded, they do come off quite easily. He's taped it on there, which is nice of him, but at the end of the day, I don't need it. So, I'm just going to, yoink, yoink. Come on, off you come. There we go. I did actually, here's an interesting story. I have told this before, and so for any of my viewers who have heard this story before, I do apologize, but it was my own Macintosh SE 30 that sent me down this recapping rabbit hole. I had I have an SE30, one of my prized possessions. I got it when I did some swapsies with someone. So there was someone who was really interested in the early power PCs, like the clones and the 7000 series and that. And I had a great big stack of CPUs for those, the little daughter board CPUs, 604s or 604E CPUs at all different, megahertzes, and so I swapped him a whole bunch of those daughter boards and a bunch of RAM as well, and in return I got a Macintosh SE30, and I brought it home. I was going to do a little bit of a video opening it up and just post it on YouTube, and while I was opening it up, I think one of these caps just fell off. While while I was, I think it was one of these, fell off while I was pulling it apart. And as I say, that actual event is what sent me down the recapping rabbit hole. So here we are today. Distro Hopper 39B, hello and welcome to the stream. Okay, so Nick Y, finally got a SCSI SD, but I can't get it to work. The micro SD card won't work with my Android phone. And since I updated the firmware, now it won't work at all anymore. Which firmware did you update it to, my good sir? Let me just have a look here. I'm just checking to see whether I can get the initial message from this guy about whether this worked or not. Where's his name? Where's his name? There it is. It's very silly of me to not. Here we go. Right. No, okay, so that's interesting. Yeah. So I need to actually go back and have a look at the original request that he sent to see whether, because he in his very first message to me, he basically just asked what's involved in sending this thing to you. I don't think he mentioned whether it was working or not. But anyhow, either way, it'll be working when I'm finished with it. Yep, you heard it here first, folks. The 2019 version, I had no idea. So the firmware versions of the SCSI 2 SD generally have a 4 in front of them. And I think the latest one at the moment is 4.84, something like that. So that's, and you need to get that off the code source website. The best thing to do is to load up the SCSI. What I found, if you've got a problematic SCSI 2 SD, you load up the SCSI 2 SD utility, you select upgrade firmware, you select the firmware file, which is, as I say, I think it's 4.84 or something like that. You select that firmware file, it'll then swear at you and say that it can't find a SCSI 2 SD. Then at that point, plug the SCSI 2 SD into the USB port of your computer, and then it should then just start the firmware update, and it'll get the latest firmware on there. So yeah, so that's getting the latest one there. A lot of them ship with one that I think is 4.4, and it's bad. Don't use 4.4. Definitely update the firmware. I am going to be doing a video when I get the time to do the recording of setting up the SCSI 2 SD from scratch. So from pulling the thing out of the box to the end. Now, another thing to keep in mind with some of those SCSI 2 SDs, they do have slightly wonky. Sometimes, just the latest shipment of these happened to me. The little SD card was a little bit funny. Sorry, SD card slot was a bit funny. And I had to push the thingy in and out and in and out a few times. And then it eventually sort of sat well and I had no problems. So, yeah. All right. Now, it really is time for me to start doing some pre-recorded videos, isn't it? So this is job number 41. Hello, 41. And the first thing I'm going to do is take all of these bits and pieces off, which is horrifying because, you know, it really scares you because all this plastic is so unbelievably brittle. This person has also asked that I give him a new PRAM battery, which I will do. I keep a very significant supply of PRAM batteries here. So these little plastic tabs that hold the ROM and RAM sims in have a tendency to break. So when I'm doing these, I am just doing them super, super carefully. Worth mentioning that there are, I think, 3 three, possibly more, but three that I know of, revisions of the SE30 logic board. This revision here has a socketed CPU. It's not soldered in. I can actually remove this CPU from a socket, so it's socketed. But it does not have the little bodge wire that runs from somewhere over here to somewhere over here. There's this little blue wire that runs from one location here to another location. I think it comes out of a little hole on the board and then runs to one of the pins on this chip. And this doesn't have that one. So this is sort of the in-between. Let's call this the revision B board. And then the revision C board has a soldered-on CPU rather than socketed. And this capacitor here is actually on the other side of the ROM slot. So what's there is over there. So as I say, there are these variations. But having said that, in terms of the sizes of the capacitors, they're all the same. Just a reminder, cheat sheet. This is on my website where you can download it, and it gives you all the measurements and polarities of the capacitors that are going to go on this board. We also, of course, keeping in mind, just mentioning that we do also have with these a couple of these axial electrolytic capacitors. Generally not prone to failure, but I still replace them when I recap these boards, because that's me. Oz Retro Comp, or Tone, how are you, mate? Welcome to the stream. Why so many dislikes? People just dislike me. It's just how it goes. Okay, so yes, yeah. Look, I mean, as I've said in my streams before, I honestly could not care if people like or dislike this stuff. I'm not actually doing this to be liked. I do this for fun. I just quick mention. I hit 2,700 subscribers overnight. So thank you to everyone who has played a part in that, in subscribing to my videos. To my channel. I do appreciate it. It's very, very nice of you. But of course, one of the things that has happened as the subscriber numbers go up is I get really weird comments sometimes. People jump on and they, sort of talk about, really weird sexual experiences and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's just one of the joys of getting more subscribers. So, yay. So this is, I do apologize for the tedium of this particular task, but I just have to be so careful here because I just don't want to break the plastic. These RAM slots, I've never found replacements other than taking them off other computers. So the newer ones that have the metal on them, which I will just show you here very quickly. Let me have a look here. Just having a quick look to make sure. Yes, okay, so these are the newer RAM slots, for 30-pin RAM slots, and they have these little metal holders, which of course are much better and they don't break as easily, but they don't fit into the holes on these ones. So if you're stuck with these plastic ones, you're kind of stuck with these plastic ones, which sort of sucks. I need my goggles, sorry. Getting old. Eyesight, vision, bad. I do actually have my SE30, which, as I mentioned before, I do have one of these. Mine actually has a snapped plastic thingy on the ROM sim. I can't remember whether I did that or whether it was like that when I bought it, or got it. It has a busted thing. If you're having trouble getting them to stay in, what I would recommend is getting your old hot glue gun, getting a little bit of hot glue onto the end, because the beauty of hot glue gun is it's quite easy to remove if you want to sort of snap it off at a later date if you do want to swap the sims out. Nearly there, guys. 3 more to go. My apologies. I'm getting quicker at it. That's something. One of the reasons why when I have one of these that doesn't work, it's very frustrating because I might have to take the RAM out if I want to pop it in the ultrasonic cleaner. So I have to take the RAM out and clean it, and then, you know, put the RAM back in again, and then take it out and put it in again. And every time, you know, my heart skips a beat because I'm worried that I'm going to snap some of this plastic. Okay, all removed with no damaged plastic. That is successful. So I've basically just taken all the RAM out. I've taken the battery cover off. I've labelled my little Ziploc bag here so that I don't mix these up with another computer. And then we'll put that over here for now. Michael Mullet, welcome to the stream. Right, so I can now also say I've collaborated. Yes, I've collaborated with the 8-bit guy in a very roundabout sort of way. I've never actually spoken with the 8-bit guy, but that's okay. There's enough 8-bit in the world for more than one of us. Greetings, Caesar Agfarkas. There is a little bit of an inside joke in that one there. So Dana from Dana Does Stuff, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining the stream. Posted a photo of some of his vintage computer stuff, which is very impressive, I might add. You know, he had software boxes of PageMaker, and he had Express and Freehand and stuff like that. So, but he had in a box, handwritten on it, he had Agfa Arcus 2. And for those who weren't around during that period in history or weren't involved in the graphics industry, Agfa made a scanner called an Arcus, a very, very good one, I might add. I would have loved to have had one in the day because they were just made really well. They're a SCSI scanner. And anyhow, it was handwritten on a box there saying Agfa Arcus 2. But if you imagine that there was no space between Agfa and Arcus, we just came up with the name Agfa Arcus. So anyhow, there we go. Sounds a little bit rude. Removing the battery. Well, the battery was actually removed by someone else. So the person who owned this removed the battery. So they were sensible enough to do that. You know, someone posted on Facebook the other day talking about, oh, I've got this Mac Classic and I'm getting a checkerboard and everything like that. And I just sort of think, you know, what's the battery going to look like in that thing? So anyhow, oh, Chris, not bad. Thank you very much for that. Just dropped in for a minute to say hello. Have a great weekend. Regards, Chris from Florida. Well, thank you very much, Chris. That is greatly appreciated. I do appreciate the super chats. I thank you very, very much. I consider myself somewhat of a 32-bit guy. Yes, fair enough. Well, I mean, this is not 32-bit clean guy. I do make myself laugh at times. Okay, yeah, look at all those wonderful RAM slots. It is fantastic, isn't it? Okay, we're going to get these caps off. So it's the normal story. Well, let's have a look at it under the microscope. Now, I have got a new toy. I just thought I should mention. It's not much to look at, but I've got a thing called the Barlow Lens attached to this now. And what that enables me to do is have this further up off the table so that I've got more room to work underneath. When I say more room, it's about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. Or for those in the metricated part of the world, it's probably about 40 millimeters, something like that. So I've got a little bit more room to work under here. Hopefully it doesn't have any impact on the microscope image. Oh, that looks all right, doesn't it? A little bit nice. I've got no real issue with that. So let's have a look. So this is here where the capacitor has fallen off. Now it's really not too bad under there. This is one of these boards that has the component adhesive on it. That's it there, which I'll need to remove all those so that I can put the new components on nice and flush. But that's looks interesting. Anyhow, so that's, yeah, that capacitor just fell off all by himself. Then up here, of course, is where all the carnage usually is, and you can see the way the dust is kind of sticking to the board. That's usually indicative of you know, sort of there being some leakage on there. But you know, we do have a little bit of this crustiness in here. But I'll tell you what, as far as SE30s go, this one's not bad. What's that? Wow, got some. Did I just spit on it? I probably just spat on it. I'm talking too wet. Yep. So there's the caps, and I've mentioned this before. I've talked about this in my other streams. One of the real problems you generally have with these, one of the reasons why you know these need recapping, is the sound stops. And the reason for that is you've got this little cluster of capacitors right here, which leak and fail, and these two guys here are sound chips. So it's right, left and right channel there. So 2 sound chips, there we go. I got a 0.7, I think. Pretty sure it's 0.7. Let me just have a look. Where are you? It's written on here somewhere. Yep, it's a 0.7 Barlow. Anyone who's not familiar with what a Barlow lens is, it's a lens that kind of allows you to change the original kind of focal distance of any device. I first became aware of Barlow lenses when I was doing amateur astronomy, which I still have a telescope, but I just don't get it out very much anymore because you know, it involves so many hours being outside at night, and it's a little bit difficult because I'm sort of spending so many hours repairing these Macs these days. But yeah, so yeah, Barlow lenses. So if you have something which is a particular magnification or something like that, you can add a Barlow lens that will change that magnification or that focal distance. And what this Barlow does is it lifts the focal distance up or down, puts it down, moves it down so the head can go up. There we go. That all makes sense now. That was a little glob of Breaker's creation. Did you get a new microscope, Mac 84? Yes, he sure did. Actually, because I'm a foolish person, very excited. Yeah, so this is one of the things that we've talked about, and I'm planning to catch up with Steve a little bit later today to just go over some of these things, because I'm going to give this microscope a good old clean today. Because it is rather grubby, and it just gets grubby from, you know, all the fumes and funk and stuff like that. So so I'm going to be pulling this apart and cleaning it, and I'm going to be sort of having a chat with Steve about his new microscope. We'll go over a few things, but this is what's referred to as a trinocular microscope, which basically means that it has 3 views, binocular being 2 eyes, trinocular meaning 3. Now, I don't have 3 eyes, but I do have 2 eyes plus a camera, so that's why it's trinocular. The way these basically work, this one, the way it works is that the light goes through a prism, and this shares the view of the left eye. So it's strictly speaking not actually 3, you know, channels of light. It's only 2, but this one shares the left eye view. And Steve picked up a microscope where he didn't realize it when he purchased it, realized it now after receiving it. He's got one that gives you an either-or option, that you can either use the left eye to look through, or you can use the left eye for the camera, but you can't do both at the same time. So, yeah. David, welcome. Thank you for joining. Is there anyone that I haven't said hello to, by the way? Simul focus. Yeah, see, all these people that know all the fancy terms for it. Right. Okay, so I just take so long to get around to these, don't I? Okay, so we've got to whip off some caps here. Once again, I'm going to be using my little heat shields, which are these little blade thingies. These start off their life being shiny and chrome looking, and then they go all brown and rusty like this, but they still work very well as a heat shield. So these are just the little blades snap-off blades. Woo! Oops, I just dropped it. Snap-off blades that you use in like a knife like that, a cutter like that. And they're really handy because they absorb heat very well. Ow! And they drop on the floor all the time. They absorb heat really well, and they are very easy to snap to a particular length. Oh, okay. Geez, that was a lot harder than it should have been. Right. Okay, so even though there's not a whole lot of plastic around here, I am going to use heat shields. And the reason is that a lot of these chips, these ICs, they get their solder joints a little bit crusty. They get a little bit of a crust on the outside. And when you apply heat to them, sometimes the outside stays solid, but the inside gets molten, and it starts pushing out little solder beads. And those solder beads, well, first of all, you're sucking solder out of the joints, so you can end up with unreliable joints on them. But then the other thing, you can end up with little solder beads floating all over the board. So I do like to try and provide some heat shield style protection when I work on these. Incidentally, mentioned before, I'm using a cheat sheet for this. I've got lots of information about SE30s on my website, recapamac.com or .com.au, whichever you prefer. On that website, if you go to the resources menu and you select SE30, on that page you'll have all the information about the caps that need to be replaced on the board. I think it even has links to where you can buy the replacement parts. But there's also a little instruction sheet that shows you where all of the pins of the sound chips go. And I mention that because it is very common for these to have problems around the sound chips. So there's a little diagram there. So if you're wanting to go and test to see if your sound chip is all connected, you can go and check every single pin and where it's supposed to go. So worth mentioning. Okay, so where are we? Okay, I think we're all good. Yep, all looking good here. Just hit 30 viewers, so hello to 30 of you. I apologize for people in parts of the world where it might be quite late at night, but it is, what is it, 11, I'm 40 minutes in and I haven't removed a single cap yet. Okay, I'm gonna speed this up. Right, let's start whipping these caps off. I don't really care about exposing this guy to heat because he's coming off. Because these sound chips are through hole, I'm less concerned about those as well. It's the, what do you call them? It's the surface mount ones that I'm more concerned about. So, let's just hit this with some heat, shall we? I'm removing these with a hot air station rather than the twist-off method or cut-off method that a lot of people talk about. I don't like when people yank them or twist them. I think it's way too easy to do some serious damage. I apologise about how glary the image is here at the moment. That is because my microscope needs a clean, which is what's going to happen next. These are particular surface mount caps. These were on these SE30s, and I think they were on the Mac 2s or 2Xs as well. You'll see they've got nothing written on the top. The information about the capacitor is on a little yellow label wrapped around the side like that. I don't know if you can see that. You can see that little yellow label there? That's where the information is written about the capacitor rating and voltage and that sort of stuff. Now, the problem is that when you hit things with hot air, those labels get ridiculously sticky. And I just find myself with these stuck on the tweezers. There we go. Okay. Right. Oh, look at all these words. I've got to read words. Sorry. 2CX one, unfortunately, never got it working. The battery leaked all over it. Oh, that's a real shame to hear, PTM MMX. That's I would love a 2CX, I'll be honest. I mean, sometimes battery damage can be repaired, but other times it's an absolute nightmare. I've got a few battery damaged ones here at the moment. Do love the 2CX. 2CX and 2CI, two of my favourite vintage Macs. So, okay. Can't hear the sound on the 2CI, but it's so light not to be there. Yes, that is an indication of it needing recapping. So that's the joy of a 2CX. Sorry, 2CI and 2CX for that matter. Really interesting thing about the 2CX and 2CI, they have this thing called a startup circuit. All the early 2 series do. The 2, 2X, 2FX, 2CI, 2CX. They have this thing called a startup circuit, and I think even the SI as well, and probably the VX and VI. And oftentimes you can be in a situation where the board works, but it just won't start up because that startup circuit's shot, and I'm pretty sure the startup circuit's near the battery as well. So I've actually got a power supply that I use that bypasses that startup circuit. So it's often a really good way of me being able to tell if the board is working, but just the startup circuit's a problem. So I can grab that 2CX or 2CI, plug it into this power supply. If it fires up, but it doesn't work with the normal power supply, the problem is either A, the original power supply, and that's easy enough to test with another good board, or B, the startup circuit. So, yeah. 604, 604, the leakage was very minimal, a couple of traces of damage. Yeah, I mean, I've got a video on my channel where I repair a battery damaged 2VX, I want to say VI, with a Macintosh 2 VI. And yeah, sometimes it can just be a couple of traces, sometimes it can be an absolute train wreck. I've got one over here at the moment, a Macintosh 2, which I'm kind of working on as a project. Sorry, Classic 2. Is this the one? Yeah, this is the one. And it's had some very bad battery damage. And so I'm it's all around here. So far, what I have done with this, I'm going to continue working on it. The hope is that I'll get it working, but if I don't, it's no huge loss. It's only a classic at the end of the day. I have had to take off this component, this component, this component, this component, and this component. That component there just happens to be the actual CPU. So they've all come off. Pads have been cleaned, put those components back on again. Obviously, all the caps have been removed. I haven't replaced those yet. And then a lot of these traces are damaged as well. So I've got to go in and do trace repair for probably at least a dozen of these, and then recap it, and then I'll probably be prepared to give it a try after that. So anyhow, that's just mentioning it. That's probably about as bad as it would be where I would actually agree to work on it. Sometimes I look at a board and I go, you know what? No. Right, here we go. Just me, or is there something oddly satisfying about seeing all that stuff come out at the bottom of an electrolytic when heat is applied? The capacitor craps itself. Okay, soldering a spare PlayStation 1 board and select 452 yeah, that's excellent. For a logic board, surprisingly works fine in a Performer 5300 CD's case. Yes, that's right. All of those boards of that vintage that had that same connector, for that slide out connector, they all work together. So I had someone send me a 6300 board, I think it was a 6300 board, something like that. And I was able to test it in my LC580. Just straight swap. There you go. And I've also got an LC630. You can do the same with that one too. Okay, running like a nice PC hard drive for Macintosh. Yeah. Okay. 2 secs on a PowerBook 160. I'll tell you what, those PowerBook 100s are a nightmare to work on. I'm just letting you know that. We've got this great big long string of yellow goo from one of those capacitors. So let's just jump back to the microscope and we'll continue, because otherwise we will never get this done. One of the good things I'm seeing here is I don't see a whole lot of trace rot. So when the caps go bad, ooh, look at the state of that pad. I'm sorry, I'm almost out of camera. Look at this stupid. Can you see it? It's like capacitor dangling from the tweezers because of that yellow label. Whee! So yeah, look at the state of that pad under that capacitor there. Really, really crusty, crunchy. Okay, so let's just get this one off. These do explode sometimes as I'm removing them, just letting you know. I feel fairly protected because I'm looking through a microscope, but it still makes you squeal sometimes when they go pop. Okay. Right, so there's 4 off. Got another one here. This is the little guy that likes to kill you, E8. Oh wow, look at all this extra room I have under my microscope now with my Barlow Lens. I'm so fancy. Oh, wow. This is really funny because I'm finding myself just working in the space that I normally have, but I've got all this extra space now. I should have bought a Barlow Lens ages ago. Don't ask me why it took so long. Okay. Oh, it's cold in here, by the way, so I'm just going to warm myself up with this hot air station. Feels like this will be an 8-hour stream. No! No! This will not happen. It cannot be. I've got other stuff to do. I've got Mac Plus to repair. I've got this to clean. I've got the workshop to clean. Yes, I will clean it one day, I promise. I've got, lots to do. I've got a computer to put back together again, and so much stuff. Okay, so we've got an issue over here. It's an issue that's easily resolved, but it's an issue nonetheless. We have a row of 3 capacitors right along here, living right next to this Molex E-type connector, which, if I apply hot air, I'm going to melt those. So what I'm wanting to do now is put in a few preventative measures to stop that from melting. First thing I'm going to do, If you have lifted a pad, do you ever replace it, the pad versus a wire, to the VR? I use a wire. I generally don't replace the pads. I just feel like it's a lot of work that isn't really necessary, as long as the repair is actually restoring continuity, and as long as the repair is strong. That's all I really care about. I'm not really interested when I'm doing those sorts of repairs about making the board look absolutely brand new. Having said that, when I do those sorts of repairs, I do them very, very neat and tidy. I have a video about repairing damaged pads on my channel. It's probably my most watched video on there, actually, to be honest. And I do go through the process of doing repairs from damaged pads. And I generally find a good, strong, secure location on the board to affix a wire at one end, and then run the wire to the other side. And the wire, I use a wire that's strong enough to hold the thing in, and then I generally put UV solder mask on it afterwards to give it extra rigidity. In some instances where I have done this before, where so much of the board was gone, I had nothing to actually anchor onto, I used a component adhesive. So you basically stick the glue on the component, you put the component on the board, you bake it in the oven until the component adhesive goes hard, and then that holds the component in position really, really well. And then you run the wires there. So, yep, Michael, your SCSI 2SD is on the way. I do hope it arrives soon. Okay, so when I will clean his studio, yeah, I know, it's a bit like that, isn't it? Well, one of the problems I have at the moment is I have so many open jobs, open projects. I mean, I have got bits of Mac Plus all over the place over here because I'm in the middle of working on a Mac Plus. So it's a little bit difficult to put all that stuff away when the jobs are kind of active. Getting it to work on my Pentium 123. The CF card working. Okay, yeah, okay, that's interesting. Oh yeah, I haven't tried. Someone was talking about using compact flash instead of a hard drive on these. I've used a few different types of solid state drives, but I've never used just one of those straight converters, IDE to CF, CF card, which I should. Repaired a 2SI Daystar PDS and adapter card. Oh, I'm so jealous. What? Tell us about the Daystar, Fizbin, please. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the stream. Fizbin, can you please tell me about the Daystar card? Is it actually like an accelerator? So I'd be very interested to know. Yes, Sean is a Mac Yacker now. Okay, so, well, I mean, I'm not sure that he's an officially long-term Mac Yacker, but he's certainly part of that extremely elite crew of guests on our show. Right, so getting these caps off here. Once again, I've got all of these. I've got Captain tape wrapped around this plastic, which is heat-resistant tape. I'm hoping that will disperse some of the heat. And then I've got my heat shield here as well. And I'm hoping that will be enough so that I can get these caps off without melting that connector. For those who aren't familiar with SE30s, that connector is sort of like an umbilical cord between the analog board and the logic board. So it does two things. It sort of works in both directions. It gets power, so it gets power from the power supply, but it also sends the image across the analog board to then be shown up on the display. So it's sort of it's an input and output connector. Okay, so it plugs in the PDS slot, breaks out to a PDS pass-through and a cache slot. Is that all? Because obviously there was Apple sold them with one of those as well. So this is a Daystar version of just the Apple one. So it is really, essentially, it's just the pass-through, but it has a cache slot as well. Because the original Apple one, it has the pass-through, or is it? No, it's not a pass-through. It converts PDS into a new bus. So I've got a couple of those actually. So you plug it into the PDS slot, and it allows you to connect the new bus card horizontally. It also has an FPU on it, so it allows you to add a math copressor onto the 2SI. So The cache slot is used by Daystar processor upgrade cards. Yes, does more than the Apple one. Okay, yeah, cool. I love hearing about people that have these add-ons. I mean, I owned a Macintosh, well, my parents owned a Macintosh Classic when I was younger, which of course I used a lot. It had, we got an 030, a Daystar 030 accelerator in it. And of course that Classic's now gone. I don't know, we probably sold it or gave it away or something like that. But oh, gee, I would love to have that accelerator now. I mean, accelerators for these things are just going for silly money on eBay. Incidentally, I just wanted to make mention of floppy drives because I am going to be doing a video fairly soon where I'm going to be restoring a 2VI. Yeah, a 2VI. So I've got a Macintosh 2VI that I picked up recently, and I'm going to make a series of live streams on it where I have trouble getting this bloody cap off, where I restore it kind of from the ground up. I'm not going to retro bright it because I really don't care about that, but I am going to recap the logic board, recap the power supply, recap the CD-ROM drive, and restore the floppy drive and replace the eject cogs. So I've got a series of videos that I'm going to be doing where I'm going to be restoring that 2VI from the ground up, and at the end of that I'm planning to give that 2VI away to one lucky viewer. It'll probably need to be an Australian one because I can't imagine what it would cost to ship that to the States, or anywhere else in the world for that matter. And during that video, when I work on the floppy drive, I'm going to be doing some tests on the replacement eject cogs. I've talked about these a few times before, and you can buy 3D printed eject cogs. I was originally buying mine from the States, then I found a supplier here that was making them in Australia, and then I had problems with those ones, so I then went to another Australian supplier, and I've been in touch with him a couple of times, and his cogs are really good. So I'm planning to do some tests where I'm going to hook them up to a power supply, and I'm going to get them to do like 1,000 ejects or something like that and see how well those cogs last. Sorry, I've got notifications coming up here. I'm going to just switch that off. So yes, I'm going to be doing some tests, and I'm going to test these three. So I'm going to test the ones from the States that I used to buy. I'm going to test the ones that I buy from this supplier, and then I'm going to test the ones from the other Australian supplier where I've stopped buying theirs because I had problems with them. So I am going to, that's just mentioning that to people that I'm going to, because it has been mentioned a few times that, oh, you get these 3D printed cogs, isn't that great? But how long are they going to last? So I want to start putting them through their paces and seeing how well they go, and then comparing them, and ultimately then to be able to say to people, look, if you want replacement eject cogs, the one I recommend is these ones. So that's something that's coming, just letting you know. Cheap eBay soldering irons worth it? I want to start learning how to solder. That's a kind of a loaded question because at the end of the day, you can solder with just about anything. I've got a learning to solder video on my channel where I solder with the kind of cheapest, rubbishiest solder station I could find. And it performed really well. I was very happy with it. The only thing I don't like about it is the tip falls off all the time. But, that's that. I do have links in the description for the soldering iron that I use, but I also have a link in there for a lower cost alternative. Now, that's if you want to get one that is, of reasonable quality. I use ones that have these tips. They're called T12 tips. They're great big long ones like this, and the tip has the heating element in it. So whereas a lot of soldering irons, you just put a little tiny tip on the end of the heating element, on these ones, the heating element is the tip itself, which I really like. It's a very efficient way of getting the heat there. It also allows you to hold them while they're hot, because you can hold them at the base if the tip is hot. So that's really handy because it means you can hot swap your tips mid-solder. So I really recommend T12 tips, a soldering iron that takes T12 tips. But having said that, there are lots of, I would consider perfectly usable, workable, cheap soldering irons out there. All I would say is don't get an all-in-one. So if you've got a soldering iron where this is like the wire that comes out the back goes to the mains power. I don't recommend those. I recommend you buy one that's a solder station, so it has, you know, like the tip like that then runs to a base unit, where you can control the temperature. So that's basically what I recommend. But it's, you know, as I had in the learning to solder video that I did, one of the things I did point out is that technique is probably more important than the equipment. As I say, there are reasons why I do like this soldering iron. There are also reasons why I hate it. But on the whole, you know, I'm very happy with this soldering iron. Okay. Why not make metal cogs? It's the main reason why you don't want to make metal cogs is because they kind of need to be able to fail. If you end up in a situation where the eject mechanism jams up, you're going to burn out the motor if something doesn't give. And I've got a burned out motor floating around here somewhere. So if something doesn't give, if something doesn't snap and allow the motor to spin freely, if it gets locked up, that motor is going to melt. And then you have to replace the motor rather than just replace a cog. And those motors are a lot harder to get hold of than a replacement cog. So there you go. Okay, sorry. I need to go back here because I'm missing some of the chat here. My PowerBook 7220 today, battery leaked, and there's a bunch of crayons jammed inside the floppy drive. Oh dear. Okay. That's your adapter for an Asante new bus Ethernet card. Yeah, I've got a new bus Ethernet card in my 2SI as well. I should mention I bloody love the 2SI. Great little computer. I've overclocked mine. I've got videos on that on my channel as well if you're interested. I would say just to replace the floppy drive. Yes, well, that would be great if you could get replacements. Using the 2SI. Oh, that's also Daystar Turbo 040, 33 megahertz in the 2SI. I'm so jealous. I'm jealous. Right, do you remember if the ones from the States, the ones from Vespa works on eBay? Yes, I'm almost certain it is. They've got that photo. The ad has the photo on eBay where you've got like one moldy broken cog and then the replacement sitting next to it. It's the same photo used on that eBay ad, and I think there's on my floppy drive servicing video on my YouTube channel. There is a link to, I think, which those ones. It's the Vespa Works one, and they're good. I've never had any problems with them, but they were just very expensive for me to get out here. By the time they got out here, they were working out at around about 15 Australian dollars per cog, something like that, something obscene. Whereas when I buy these ones locally, I can get them far, far cheaper. Okay. Using a TS100 TS100 variable temp. Okay, now the TS100 is that TS100. Just be right back. I'm just going to grab a little bag of bits because I think I have one of those. If it's the one I'm thinking of. Excuse me. Yeah, I do have a TS100. Is it in here? No, it's not. So it's somewhere else. It's probably in here, in this container. Hello, TS100. Here's a tip for a TS100. Hello. Oh well, it's around somewhere. But yes, I have a TS100. They're a great little soldering iron. I like the tips on them. I do find them a little bit difficult to use for long periods of time. That's just to do with the shape of them. I have made myself a great big power supply for one of those as well. So a really big, strong power supply to sort of so that I can, crank the temp up. Because for those who don't know the TS100, they're a soldering iron that doesn't come with a power supply. You power them from, I think it's just a little, adapter, normal little plug goes into the top, and they will run off lots of different temperatures. Lots of different voltages and currents and stuff like that. But if you want to really run them at top temp, you've got to put a pretty good power supply behind them. So anyhow, yes, TS100, great little budget iron. I can definitely recommend those. So And not only that, they're open source. You can actually download firmware for them, which will give you different controls. I've actually got a custom firmware in my TS100 that allows me to have different controls, and it does auto power off and all that sort of stuff. So it's a really nifty little thing. So yeah, and I say I do have one somewhere under all the rubble. I've also got a spare knockoff soldering iron. This here, although it says it is an FX951, it's not a genuine Hacko. That's a knockoff one. That does work quite well, I will say. So just letting you know, if you're trying to save a bit of dough, they're not a bad alternative. I'd really love to know where my TS100 is. There you go. Worry about that another day. Okay, so micro soldering pencil best ever, and I really should get that. I know. Okay, right, here we go. Is the key probably is the keyword. Okay. Probably won't need it. Yes. Okay. I want 675 megas card from Macintosh SE. Yeah. Michael. Yeah, you and me the same. I'll tell you what. If there's a 68040 accelerator, I can just tell you'll end up in a bidding war because there are so many people looking for them. I mean, I've just given up on trying to get accelerators or even the cash card for the 2CI because everyone wants them. So they get up on the eBay and they get, bidded into eternity. So, yes, I've got a few different tips for the TS100. All these are all things I'm telling you that I've got. I'm unable to provide any evidence that I have them, but you just have to take my word for it. Right. Okay. All right. Here we go. Took you a year to get one? I mean, were you looking in the wrong place, or do you mean that you took a year to decide to get one? All right. Last cap, I think. Last of the surface mounts, anyway. I am really prattling on today. This has got to be the slowest recapping I've ever done. I hope people are just, for people in the US who are just settling into their Friday evening, are happy to just sit here and listen to me prattle on about nonsense. Well, I mean, obviously some people aren't because I've got dislikes. Dislikes. How many have I got, by the way? Just curious. I haven't looked. 32 concurrent viewers. Hello, 32 people out there. Anyone who is watching, please do jump on and say hello. Anyone who hasn't said hello yet, I'm always happy to hear from folks. If anyone is a first-time viewer, please jump on and say hello. And once again, questions are welcomed, as this is one of the reasons why I can go for an hour and 8 minutes and be barely working on this thing at all, because I like to chat and talk about things and such. So this is the part of the board here with the battery, and what we have here is a little crystal oscillator. That's for the real-time clock, and that chip there is the real-time clock chip. So just letting you know. And obviously, if you end up with a leaky battery, they're going to probably be the first things to go. Okay. Actually corking in the bathroom. Wow. Enjoy. Always like to do a bit of corking from time to time. Got a corking gun just there. Because I am in my shed. Even though I do like to tell people this is a studio that's made to look like my shed. And to recap my SE30 as well at some point. Excellent. It's a very good move. I'll tell you what. Recap your SE30 sooner rather than later, because the longer you leave them, the worse they get. I have seen some of the worst SE30s out there. And I just look at them and I think, if you'd have come to me a year earlier, this would have been a lot easier. Greetings from Brooklyn. Hello, Tommy Mokas. Looking to do my first recap of an SE30 with the zebra stripes. You're giving me the confidence to do it myself. Excellent. I'm pleased to hear that. So, yeah, those zebra stripes are almost definitely being caused by some sort of nonsense going on in this area here. So really important, obviously, to recap and then get all of this stuff around here as clean as possible. So just mentioning that. So Right, now we've got to get these axials off. As I mentioned earlier on in the stream, it feels like an hour ago now, axial caps generally don't have a high failure rate. And I could leave these on and not replace them. But at the end of the day, someone is bringing this to me to future-proof it. They're basically saying, recap it. So I'm going to recap it. The way I remove these, I've found the easiest way, even though I have a motorized solder sucker, I still find the easiest way to remove these is to just snippity snip, snippity snip, and then snippity snip, and snippity snip, and then off they come. Now what I then do is I then remove these pins one at a time, and I do that like this. Okay, let's just get to... we're about to get onto the cleaning stage. Trina, did you hear that? Trina says she likes the cleaning stage. Okay, so where are we? Where are we? Okay, let's get some flux. Have I still got any of my gunky? Yeah, here's my... This is the flux I don't like, and I'm nearly finished it, and so I'm just going to use this for cleaning. That's why I don't like it. It's because it's white. You can't see through it. It stinks too. It smells like, what did I say? That what we in Australia call fairy floss, candy floss, cotton candy. That's the one. Lord. Hello from, is that Chillum, Maryland? Hello. Hello from Silly Philly. Hello. Ontario, Canada. Yes, well, I've said hello to some of these people before, but I'm now finding out where they all are. So I knew Trina was in Canada. Hello from Jersey. Oh, now okay. Look, there's all this chat going on here that I've been missing. Here we go. Here we go. First time I've stopped the replays. Good evening, all. Hello, David. Thank you for joining. That's David Weedman. I do apologise for the fact that I'm having to lean over and look into this. My eyesight is terrible. Didn't used to be, but I got old. After the first time I tried to keep me okay. 7 p.m. here in Sutter Creek, California. Well, that's good. That's a very reasonable time. For the people on the other side, what is it now? It'll be, what, 10 p.m.? 10 p.m. on the other side. Hello from Atlanta. Okay. Okay, just looking. It does the job, and yep, okay, yep. Cool. Grebo, hello. I'm first-time visitor to your live chats, Bruce. I found you from that collaboration with Crazy Ken, trying to donate, but I can't make it work. Greetings from Melbourne. Melbourne, down south of where I am. So I'm in Sydney, which is in New South Wales, and the state directly below us is Victoria, and that's Melbourne. Melbourne is Australia's second most populous city. So there you go. And so welcome. I apologise. I don't know why it's not letting you do a donation. I do apologise for that. There are two options for donating if you want to. There is obviously the super chat and the super stickers there as well if you want to go with that. But also, if you go to my channel, you'll find there should be a link there to a PayPal donation there. If you want to donate, you don't have to, but it is there as an option if anyone does want to do that. I do appreciate the donations. I do not expect them, but I do appreciate them. I'm sort of, I sort of spend a lot of my time doing this stuff, and I do it, because of the love of it. But when I see that other people are appreciating it, it's great. It's really nice today. So 10:30 p.m, 10:14 for me. Yep. Okay. Oh, look at that. Jay jumps in with the advertising. Thank you very much, Jay. He should be my agent. Yes. So just a reminder, Recapper Mac. It's my website that has all the info about the different types of models. I'm a little bit behind at the moment. I've got a whole bunch of recapping guides to add there. I need to add some links for some of the analog board components. For the logic board components, I've got links for where you can buy most of them, but the analog board components I don't. It just takes a lot longer because I've got to go and measure all the lead spacing to make sure that I'm sending people to the right capacitor. So I need to get this little pin out now. So I'm going to just apply some fresh solder and some heat, and then I need some tweezers over here. And then I'm going to, while that solder is molten, grab that pin and give him a good old yank out. And then we've now got the pin out. I then need to get the solder out of the hole. I'm going to do that with some solder wick. Thank you, Jay, very much for that super chat. I do appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Isn't it? I should be super chatting you, shouldn't I? Oh, Jay, do you want to do any bets on whether this is going to work when I finished? Sorry. Oh, thank you very much, Gribo. I do appreciate that. Written testimonial for the Recap Mac service. I'll happily oblige. Thank you very much. Have you fired up the Amiga 600 since I sent it back to you? I'm just curious to know, because last time I spoke to you, you hadn't. Oh, you have. Okay. Very happy with the A600. I'm pleased to hear it. I'm very pleased to hear it. So, for those who might have seen that live stream I did where I recapped an Amiga 600, that one belongs to Oz Retrocomp, and he didn't tell me who he was. He came up with a ruse to check and see what my service would be like for someone who I didn't know. So he pretended to be someone, well, he was himself ultimately, but I didn't know Oz Retrocomp was that person. So I did the recap and everything, and then I contacted him, and then he came back and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm Oz Retrocomp." And I'm like, "Oh, you sneaky." Well, that ruse. And I just got suckered into that ruse. This one, I'm having a lot of trouble getting this pin out. And the reason for that is that this one is on a whopping great big ground plane. So on the other side of this board, you can see huge amounts of copper, and it's dispersing all the heat that I'm putting into this pin, which is making it a little bit difficult to get out. I'm hoping I can just get enough heat there. Come on. It's going to really suck getting the solder out of this. Let's see if I can just suck some of this solder away, wick it away. Solder wick, there are links to this stuff in the description of the video. This stuff is braided copper with some flux in it, and it sucks the solder in. Now, I've had a few people jump onto my comments section from time to time and say things like, "Oh, you don't need wick, you can just use some old wire." Yes, of course you can, but the wick works better. So, just letting you know, the wick works better. Now, there you see. Look at all that copper. That is why I'm having all that trouble getting that pin hot. Come on. All right. Well, the pin's not in there a long way. So let's just try this again, see if we can get this out. Sorry about the change of focus, guys. That's because I've flipped the board over. Okay. Way better at desoldering than me. Oh, thank you very much. No bets. How am I with G4 cubes? That's a good question. I've never worked on one. They're pretty rare out here. I mean, it's not like they don't exist. They're out here, but trying to get hold of a G4 cube in the Ausland is a very expensive exercise. And yeah, no one sent one to me, so they probably don't have that many problems, I guess. The things that people send to me are generally the ones that we know have problems. So yeah, I'm guessing the G4 perhaps don't have problems, or I don't know. Someone tell me, who's got a G4 cube out there? Well, obviously you have, but tell us about what the problem is. Just curious. Had someone contact me on my channel recently just saying, you know, how did you get that solder out of that hole so easily? And of course the answer to that is there's a lot of luck involved. Sometimes the solder comes out easily, sometimes it's a nightmare. Focus. Cube. Oh, Michael has a G4 cube as well. That's excellent. I look. I should mention that, you know, some of my fellow Maciacs have a G4 cube. They're not, I think, anywhere near as rare in the States as they are here. They're just, as I say, they're just. If you want to buy one out here, you're going to have to expect to pay quite a tidy sum. So anyhow, yeah, someone was asking me about getting solder out of these holes, and they said, oh, because I did it in one of my videos, and it came out really easily. And I said, look, it doesn't always come out easily. Sometimes it does, sometimes it's an absolute nightmare. But in that video, of course, I chose the scene where it all came out really easily because, you know, I wanted to make it look like I know what I'm doing. See how much trouble I'm getting this solder out? So I'm going to use my machine. Anyone who is not familiar with the machine, it's my motorized solder sucker, which when you press the button goes, so that's why I call it the machine. I have another name for it, but I don't want to mention that name here because it might cause offense if that particular person watches the video. That is a pin that is currently giving me fits, yes. Look, I have got solder out of these just using Wick and Flux and solder. I'm going to go down the easy path for the sake of everyone here. But at the end of the day, what I generally do with these when I'm having a lot of trouble with them, I apply more heat, I apply more solder, I apply more flux. So get some flux here. I get my soldering on, and I'm just going to apply some heat. I've got a larger soldering tip that I sometimes use, which generates more heat, so I can just get more heat onto the location. Consarnate. Still not coming out, is it? What is my flux of choice? My flux of choice is Amtech NC599V2TF. There are links to it in the description, where you can buy it on Amazon. And it's a very good flux. The things that make flux good are obviously them actually doing their job as a flux, and that is that they are stopping the oxidization. They're stopping the reaction with the air so that the solder doesn't get a little crust on the outside and it flows a lot easier. So that's basically what a flux does. But then the other important thing is that a flux doesn't just immediately burn away when you apply heat to it, and so then it's not effective for very long. The other is, of course, that if it leaves really horrible residue behind. So this isn't going to work. I'm just letting you know that. I've got the wrong tip on it. I've got a tip on this with a really large hole in the end. So it's, I really should change the view, shouldn't I? This is just mean of me. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm just catching up on the chat. I do apologise. How's Bernadette going? Bernadette is going very well. She's mixing with the other chooks a lot more now, so we don't see her in here as often as we do. So as we used to. I do apologise for that. Mine's similar. I bought it from Lewis Rossman's store. If it's from Lewis Rossman's store, it's almost definitely the same stuff because I'm pretty sure it's the stuff he uses. It's good stuff. That's another thing that I get on my videos sometimes. I get people telling me what flux I should be using. It's funny the way people just like to just sort of tell you in the comments of your video how you should be doing things the way they want to do it. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, you know, the hearts are probably in the right place, I suppose, but at the end of the day, I just sort of feel like saying, look, you know, this is the way I do it. You do it any way you like, but this is the way I do it. I mean, I appreciate you mentioning how you do it, but it's not how I'm going to do it. because that's not how I do it. I'm going to try and stick the smaller tip on this. Me doing something really stupid here, swapping tips while the freaking thing is hot. Yes, yes, yes. I know it's dumb. I know it's stupid. You don't want to drop that little tip in your lap. Just letting you know that. Now, which tip do I want? I want the smallest one I have, which I think is this one. Ooh. There we go. Is that just the stupidest thing you've ever seen? Watching someone do that? Okay. You should clean your desk. Why? Why? I don't know. Why? I just, you know, I've got room here. I've got room for this this board with this, you know, little solar hole which is giving me all this grief. Come on. You know, I'm going to add some more solder to this because I sucked a fair bit out before, and I think it's not able to make a nice what do you call it? It's not able to make a nice seal around it to get the suction doing its job. So more solder. It always seems very counterintuitive to add solder when you want to take it away, but it works. Solder likes to hang out with solder, so if you've got a little bit extra there, when you go to pull it out, it brings the rest with it. So I really do not object to people doing things differently to the way I do it. I never said that the way I do things is the right way. It's just, it's the way I do it. It's the way it works for me. Try different ways. This is the way I like. I cannot believe how stubborn this is. This is going to send me to an early grave, this is. All right, time to break out the big guns. I'm going to whip off this tip here, and I'm going to put on my massive one. My massive, massive tip that gets all the heat. GT, welcome back. I haven't burned myself since early June. Yeah, I mean, working with soldering irons, you burn yourself a lot. I haven't in a while. I'm probably due for one. Found your recommendation for equipment and supplies very helpful. I'm glad. I am glad. That's the point. So, yeah. I sort of having used a lot of these, you know, a lot of different different bits of equipment. I'm always happy to share my experience of what I have used and what works for me and what doesn't. Okay, so here now, what we're going to do is we're going to do the method that we were doing before, which is we will add some solder or solder if you're from the part of the world that says it like that. Like that. There we go. Getting plenty on there. Good. Then I'm going to get some flux and I get some wick. I'm going to use this great big hot tip. Looking good. Hey! Whee! I might leave that tip on while I get the other two pins out. Alright, come on. Where are you? I've lost you. Here we are. Let's add some new solder. There we go. Oh boy. Oh, I've got to catch up with all this chat. Pull it out in pliers. Oh, it was already out, by the way. I was just sucking the solder out. Good brand from J-Cards, very finely braided. Heat transfer from iron matters. Yes, so you will notice, not only looking at what I have here, but also if you have a look at the link in the description, that the wick that I'm using is good. Hello, good wick. It is a good day today for good wick. It is the stuff I use that comes in, I think, 1.5 mil, 2 mil, and 3 mil. I use the 2. I just like the 2. It just seems to suck better than the other stuff. There you go. Okay. Okay. What's your iron temp? Fizbin, I have my iron temp, as Trina has correctly answered, at 450 degrees Celsius, which is really, really hot. And I don't necessarily always recommend that for people, in particular if they're still learning the craft. I run my iron really, really hot, and then I kind of regulate the temperature with how long I have the iron on the board. And if you're new to soldering, using that really high temperature can end up doing some damage. So I wouldn't necessarily say for everyone to use that high heat. It's how I like to work. But if, you know, depending on your level of experience with soldering, I would probably recommend going with something a little bit cooler, you know, maybe more like 350 or something like that. So GT normally runs 400C. Yep. Yeah, so I like to work with the heat. Right, so let's suck this solder out here while we're here. Let's hope that this is going to be a nice, quick and easy one. Oh, that looked easy. Yep, out it comes. Let's try this one. It's amazing what a difference that really big tip makes in terms of getting the heat where you need it. That one's being stubborn. Let's try the method we tried before. I may have to come at this from the other side. Solder. Okay, let's just get some flux on here. We're not looking at the microscope view, are we? I'll get in trouble. Jay comments. He comes on and says, "Hey, can we have the microscope view, please?" It's like, uh-oh, sorry. Yay, we're through. Okay, so that's all the holes clear. Sorry about the focus. Goodness me. Who do I think I am? Focus. So, we've got all of those holes clear, ready for new caps to go in. Now we just need to clean up the pads from the old surface mount capacitors that are all crusty and yucky. We need to get them looking like brand new pads, because as I have mentioned in my videos before, the very important thing when you're soldering is to make sure that the two things you're soldering together are clean. If they are not, you'll just end up pouring more and more solder on there and ending up with blobs that aren't adhering properly. So if your solder's not sticking, it's generally because one or both of your surfaces are not clean. And of course the other important thing is flux, making sure you've got plenty of flux. Technique for removing capacitors wasn't on the screen before you did that. Well, Distro Hopper, you might have to rewind. I use a hot air station, okay? So I heat them up and then lift them off. So that's how I would recommend doing it. There are other ways of doing it. There are ways where you can obviously use solder tweezers. That's like a soldering iron, but it has two tips that you hold like tweezers, and you can solder both sides, you know, heat both sides and then lift the component off. That's a good way of doing it. Another way you can do it is you can use some fresh solder and some wick, and you add solder to both sides of the capacitor, and then you wick it away. What you do not do, or what I certainly don't recommend, is just pulling them off or twisting them off or cutting them off. Just don't recommend it. The main reason why I don't recommend it is because I have had to repair boards where people have done that and torn pads off. And then they send the board to me and say, "Hey, I tried twisting these caps off and I've torn a pad off the board. Can you fix it, please?" So, you know, if you're going to twist them or rip them off or cut them off, it's not a question of if you're going to damage the pads, it's a question of when. So, anyhow. Oh, geez, I must get down off my high horse for a minute there. Didn't I just go off then? Far out. Right, so adding some flux to the old scungy pads. Oh, these aren't spongy. These are gungy, aren't they? Is it sponge is the liquid version, is it? Well, they're sponge now because I've just added flux to them. So I'm going to add some fresh solder and just gentle circular motion. I want to just try and get as much of that crusty stuff off and replace it with fresh solder using heat, using solder, and using flux. And as you can see now, I've got these two kind of lozengey shaped things sitting on those pads, which indicates that they are now holding solder. They don't have any gunk on them anymore. And I get some wick, and I'm going to just gentle rubbing, super gentle. Got to be so gentle with these old pads, taking the solder away and just doing a last little clean up of these pads, making them look nice and shiny. Then I grab I'm out of Q-tips, cotton buds. Lucky, fresh pack. I'm going to use some isopropyl alcohol, 99.9% or whatever it is. None of them ever say 100. They say as high as they possibly can. I buy this stuff in... Oh, that's not it. I buy this stuff in bulk. I buy it in big 5-litre bottles of isopropyl alcohol. Really important stuff. And then I have it in one of these little dispensary type things here. You push down and it comes out. So I'm just going to grab my Q-tip, cotton bud as we call them here, and just get rid of all of that gunk and just leave lovely, clean, fresh pads behind. Look at that. Look at that. They're like brand spanking. Okay, here we go. Yes, I measure flux in what I call a unit called a Rossmann. So how many Rossmanns of flux I put on the board, because we know he does love to use his flux. Lead or lead-free, in your opinion? Leaded all the way for me, and I know that some people will say go with the lead-free stuff. We know lead's not good for you. Also, it's extremely important if you are using leaded solder to wash your hands after you've been doing the work. Don't put your hands in your mouth or something like that. Wear some gloves. I've got gloves over here. I should be wearing them. Shall I put them on? Yeah, I'll be good. The leaded stuff has a lower melting point. I much prefer working with it. Simple as that. And once again, it doesn't necessarily mean you should. I'm not telling people what they should do. I'm just telling people what I do. I much prefer working with leaded solder. So simple as that. I use a, by the way, what is it? It's the one I'm using is a Kester, and it is a 63-37 split. So that's 63% tin and 37% lead. I love lead in my solder, not in my water or paint. Yes, this is true. We do not want lead pipes. We do not want lead paint. And as I say, you've got to take precautions with this stuff. So, but when facing the front of the SE30 board, what is that 8-pin chip for right next to the right of the PRAM battery holder? You obviously weren't watching before, because I done said that, but I'm going to done say it again. You're talking about that guy right there? Just there? Just there? That is the real-time clock chip. Let's have a look at that under the microscope. So we can have a look at it here. So that has two, so you can actually see there, it says UK4 RTC, real-time clock. That chip, as I understand it, has two purposes. I've just torn holes in my gloves. It has two purposes. The first is, of course, it is a real-time clock. So it is a clock in there, which is, the battery provides the power for that to keep the time when you switch the computer off. But what it also does is it stores PRAM information. So it stores when you're setting your mouse tracking speed, or sort of whatever you might have stored in your PRAM. It's actually in that chip. So this is one of the problems in that if you want to replace that chip, you have to replace it with an Apple one. You can't just get some sort of generic real-time clock. You need to actually have the Apple one there. You can't really see that it says Apple on there, but it does. If I put some... There we go. Now you can see it. Apple 86. So yeah, that's the real-time clock chip. If you want to get those, you've got to source one off another board. They're the same chip on a Macintosh Plus and the same chip on a Macintosh SE. So, you know, if you get a dead board, one of those you can grab. I've done it before. I got a real-time clock chip off the Mac Plus board to stick in my SE because the one on my SE was shot. Okay, so Chris, not bad. I hope that that all helps. I have a burnt out pin. Yeah, it's common. It is actually common for these things to fail, which is a real pain. And so my guess is that, look, I think you can take the chip out or you can leave it in. The problem you will have is that the computer won't keep time properly. So, yeah. Still have the first spool of solder I ever bought in '93. Heaps of it left, mate. It's interesting you say that. I finished a spool just the other day. This one here, 0.7mm. This is just 60/40 stuff. This is just cheap stuff. I generally use this when I'm doing analog boards because, you know, I need to use huge amounts of solder. When I'm doing logic boards, I use this super fancy pants stuff. It's a bit thinner and stuff like that. The main one I'm using at the moment is Kester. They make very good solder, you know, similar to that. But yeah, I mean, it takes a long time to get through a spool. It really does. Okay. Thank you, Steve, for dropping in. I hope I'll be speaking to you a little bit later on. Sorry I've been going for so long. I'm going to get this finished up soon, I promise. I made a promise. I am planning to help Steve out a little bit with his microscope. Not that he necessarily needs help, but we can just compare notes about microscopes. Let's continue with our cleaning here, shall we? So we're just adding solder to the pads. And we are doing that and more of that, and just that gentle motion. You can just see that as I keep working on it, the black stuff gets displaced, gets moved out of the way, and then we just end up with the solder quite happily sticking to the pad. And then we just do the final little bit of cleanup with the wick. And just reminding everyone that wick can do terrible damage if you're not really sure how to use it. So if you've never used it before, do practice on a board that you don't care about. And the reason why it can cause problems is that if you're not used to using it, you can apply heat to it, you can take the soldering iron away, and then it sticks to the pad. The solder cools and it actually solders to the pad. Then you give this a yank and off comes the pad. So you need to make sure that you are keeping that wick molten while you're working on it, and don't ever yank it. If you feel it grab at any stage, just leave it. Apply more heat and then allow it to just sort of lift off. So just trying to provide little tips for anyone who might be new to this stuff, or might be someone who might be watching this because they've watched my soldering techniques videos or something like that, or repairing pads or whatever the case may be, and they're wanting to sort of pick up a few little soldering tips and things. You do need to be very careful with wick, because wick is a really good way of damaging pads if you're not careful. You're yanking them off anyway. And this one here is a scummy one, isn't it? Real grubby. Often with these SE30s, I end up having to repair repair traces, particularly around this area here, up around here. I often end up having to repair traces here, or some of these ones going off around the sound chip. This one is in really good condition. So, oh, Eric, thank you very much for that super chat. That is much appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. It said that my clock was updated for daylight saving time. Yeah, 2020 does cause a bit of grief. For those out there with vintage Macs, there is some software you can get that will allow you to set the time to 2020. Because if you just if you use the normal, whatever it is, System 6 or System 7 date time thingy. You set the date time, you put in 20, it thinks you're putting in 1920. So there is a little plug-in. I can't remember what it's called, but I think you can find it on things like Macintosh repository. Oh no, I'm not allowed to say that one. On Macintosh Garden. Hello, Christian. Macintosh Garden. You will find it floating around there, and it's just a little control panel that you can stick on in System 6 or System 7, and it just allows you to set the time with 4 digits on the year. So it's my understanding the computer itself has the capability of knowing that it's 2020, but it's just the field that you type in the year only allows 2 digits. So there you go. And if you can't get Wick unstuck from a pad, your iron is not getting hot enough and it's time for a better iron. That is very good advice. Okay. Recap my first 2 analog boards this week. Use your videos and cite for reference. Thank you very much. Please tell us, which analog boards did you recap? Eric. What is that software here? Can someone, if anyone knows, yeah, it's set date. There we go. Set date, it's called. Yes, best way to start with a board that's already broken. Worth mentioning that I some years ago I picked up a lot on eBay of broken Mac laptops, all from around about I think the mid 2000s. Mid 2000s I think. They were all Intel, but they weren't unibody. So there were the MacBooks, the white MacBooks, and there was a whole bunch of aluminium MacBook Pros. And I bought a lot of them on eBay for quite cheap. I think I came back with 15 or 16 laptops, and they're all broken. And I spent hours just learning repair techniques with those. So that that's how I kind of practiced and learned a lot of this stuff. And then of course bought all the gear and stuff and things, and then I started torturing everyone else by doing YouTube videos. Of course, I moved on to these vintage ones because I really like working on them. I'm very interested in the Mac computer, the old vintage Mac computers. I love them, and I just found there was this demand for recapping. People were just like, "Hey, can you recap it?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And then it's just gone crazy. I've actually got a recapping job coming from France. That will be the furthest anyone has sent a job to me from before. So, yeah, a French Quadra 840 is on its way to me right now. Okay, I hope I can understand it. Okay, we're working our way through these. Thankfully, there aren't too many caps on these, so it's not a huge job to recap them. It's not like an LC. I did an LC just recently. Wow, they take a long time. See a bit of trace rot there. I'll sort of point it out if you can't already see it, but there is definitely a little bit of trace rot there that I'm going to need to clean up, and you can see it just there. So that's just starting. That's where sort of the corrosion has got underneath the solder mask, that green mask, and it started to cause some rot underneath it. So I will want to rectify that. Look at all this crunchy stuff coming off. Wow. Yeah, this is probably the leakiest cap on the board, this one, I'd say. And then maybe that little one. Okay, all right, let's have a look. Yep. Yes, this is very true. Yes, you have no fear working on a broken board because it's like, yeah. SE and a classic one. Oh, excellent. Good stuff. So yes, obviously the SE, one of the great things about the SE is that power supply, because it's a switching power supply that just automatically goes from 110, 120 volt to 220, 240 volt. So that's really handy. So, I don't know if you recap the power supply or just the analog board, but that's one of the things I love about the SE. But of course the classic has gone back to the power supply that needs to be configured for either US voltage or the rest of the world voltage. So But yeah, I mean, very important ones to recap, particularly the classic. They leak terribly. Analog boards on classics are just leaky. I'm hungry. What is it that Rossman says in his video? I'm going to go get a burrito after this. Is it burritos he eats? I can't remember. Always talking about getting a burrito afterwards. Right. So. Okay. Right. Right. Good. Yeah, I mean, I always love to hear from people who have watched my videos that have sort of said, "Oh, I've recapped." I had one guy contact me, and I had to feel for the guy. I mean, I offered to help if I can, but he had a what was it? It was an LC2, and he was wanting to put the FPU mod to it because for those who aren't aware, the LC2 has a spot on the board for an FPU, but no socket there. And he's like, "Oh, should I put a socket there?" So look, it's up to you. I mean, the computer has the ability to have an FPU, but Apple just got cheap and didn't put the socket on there. So look, it's entirely up to you. Go for your life if you want to. I don't know that there's that much speed difference, but it's something that I do to mine because I just figure it's got the spot there for an FPU. I may as well put an FPU on it. And then he sort of put the FPU on, and then he contacted me and he said, the computer doesn't work anymore. It's like, I mean, always practice on the unimportant boards first. Very, very important. Get your practice done on something you don't care about. An old VCR or something like that, but not on your precious vintage boards. Make sure you've got a bit of practice and experience before you start messing with your vintage boards. Okay, so I've gone in and I've exposed these traces. Now, the problem that I have with that now is that I am going to need to coat that with some UV solder mask. I got this flash new UV light. I can't really use it, unfortunately, because it's... well, there are two things wrong with it. First of all, it's the type of UV light that does disinfecting. It's insanely bright. And so it's not quite in the right UV range. It still works with the UV solder mask, but it's so bright, and this stuff is kind of bad for your eyes. I can't have it on while I'm in here, so I've got another globe, but it's starting to get dim. It started off quite bright, but it got dim. I don't know if anyone knows anything about UV globes, but every time I've bought one, they start off really bright, and then they get dimmer as they get older. I don't know if that's a trait for UV or something. I'm really not sure, but I need to get something stronger that's going to last better, and that's just really important. So, okay, PSU is next. Good stuff. Excellent to hear. Do you know if both the Color Classic and Color Classic 2 have the same kind of analog board? Yes, they do. I have both to work on. The CC works. The CC2 doesn't power up and wanted to swap them for testing. Now, interesting thing I should just mention very quickly. I have never seen a Color Classic 2 case. I've worked on the logic boards, but I haven't seen the case. But they are the same size. They use the same voltage. They use all the same connector. So I would be very surprised if the Color Classic 2 power supply was different. I would imagine it would be quite similar. There might be some small variances, but I would imagine that it'd be very, very close. That's my assumption. But I don't know. I can't say for 100% certain. But you can certainly swap the boards over, the logic boards. They're completely and totally the same. Color Classic 2 logic board is the same as an LC520 logic board. There's virtually no difference other than the way they identify themselves in the ROM. Okay. Right, I'm just going to check on how many viewers I've got here. So, 31. So I've been hovering around about the 30 mark. I think I probably peaked at around about 35, something like that. But as you can see, I'm getting a little bit boring now. So, right, okay. So I've got to put some UV solder mask on this. It's this stuff. It comes in a tube. I've already taken it out of the tube, and I put it in a little metal tin like this that keeps the light out. And then I use a paintbrush. And I'm going to paint some on here. I've got to make sure the board is squeaky clean before I put it on, because otherwise it won't stick properly. So, have I cleaned all of them? Oh, I've got one more to do. How about two more to do? How about I clean these other two first, and then I'll do the UV solder mask, because then I need to take it out and let it dry in the sun. Shouldn't take long because the sun's out at the moment. I hope the sun's still out when I get to it. And then we can wax lyrical while we wait for it to dry. It should only take a couple of minutes to dry in the sun. If you grab a magnifying glass and use the sun, you can usually get the UV solder mask dry really, really quickly. Just make sure you don't accidentally burn the board with a magnifying glass. Focus the light to about the size of like a 20-cent piece here in Australia, or an American quarter, something like that. And yeah, it will just dry that UV solder mask in a matter of minutes. But don't look into the light. Don't look into the light. Last one. Kind of classic board in LC630 case. No, there is not. I'm afraid they're a completely different connector. The only way you'd ever be able to do that would be if you have one that has had a tacky upgrade. Because they are a completely different connector from an LC. LC was it 630 we're talking about? 630, 575, 580, a whole stack of those performers. They all use that same connector. On the flip side, no, not 575. Sorry, 575 is the same as the Color Classic. So you've got the LC5. You've got the Color Classic. The LC520, I think there's a 550, is there? I can't, yeah, 550, I think. And the LC575. All of those use the same connector. 580 and up, they use a bigger connector, and they're not compatible, unfortunately. In my opinion, it's just my opinion, which of course worth just about nothing. The Color Classic should probably have been called an LC500. When you consider that you've got an LC520, 550, 575, and they are all virtually the same, they're all the same connector, just different variations of the CPU speed and perhaps screen size. I really feel like the Color Classic should have been called an LC500. So it's just my opinion. Okay, yeah, 520, 550, 575, that's correct, and Color Classic, yep, and Color Classic 2. So yeah, but obviously when it comes to the 630, there are a whole stack of boards that have the same connector as the 630, just not those ones just aforementioned. You can even put in PowerPC boards onto the 630. You can take a LC630, you can whip that out, stick a PowerPC board in there with maybe a big old fancy 601 CPU on it, maybe even a 603 if you're super lucky. Right, now we get to the UV solder mask bit, which I didn't do before. I've got my teeny weeny little paintbrush here, and I'm just going to paint some of this stuff on. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because when I put this new component on, I have concerns with the tantalum caps that I'm going to put in place of the surface mount electrolytics. They have really wide pins on them. And I'm just concerned that I don't want those wide pins accidentally touching some of this exposed trace. And that. Have a recap. PC computers. I have done some repair on PC computers. I think I've done a recap on a power supply of a PC computer. And I've even done a couple of Nintendo 64 recaps. But If you're asking me that because you're thinking, oh, you know, can I send you one or something like that, or are you going to do a video on one or something? I generally don't make a habit of doing them, and there's a very good reason for that, and it is that I just don't know the computers very well. I don't have stuff for properly testing any of those sorts of things, and testing is an incredibly important part of recapping. If I can't test what I've recapped, I ultimately don't want to do it. I've really only had one job come to me under those circumstances, and I said to the person flat out, you're going to need to send me the power supply for that thing as well, because otherwise I can't test it. And he just said, I trust you, it's all right, I'll send it to you. Now, he sent the board to me, I recapped it, and it worked afterwards. But it's nice that you trust me, but things can go wrong when you're recapping. And so, you know, you have got to be able to test it afterwards. It's not, you know, I mean, this has happened to, you know, sort of Jay House of Moth recently, and it is not, it's not like an issue with the work you do. This sort of work has to be tested, because you can't, you know, things can go wrong. And it's, as I say, it's not a fault of the person doing the work. We're talking about, you know, precise electronic components here. And things can go wrong when you're doing this stuff. It can be as simple as a solder joint, you know, accidentally creating a short, like, as you see, I'm just putting this UV mask on here. Now, if I didn't put that UV mask on and I just plonked a component on there, everything might look peachy, the joints might look perfect, but I might have accidentally created a short in there. It is so easy for something like that to go wrong with these sorts of things. You've got to be able to test them afterwards. Simple as that. Okay, so I'm going to go quickly. Oh, God, the sun's gone away. Joking. I'm just going to, for a very brief moment, go in and dry this UV solder mark. So please sit tight, talk amongst yourselves. I will be back in a few minutes. Hello. I couldn't find my magnifying glass. I mean, it's so unlike me not to be able to find something in here. But so I've just got it sitting in the sun. It won't take long. It'll be dry very soon. But in the meantime, we can just, let's do some little tests on this cute little multimeter, shall we? See how accurate it is. So, for those who missed the beginning of the stream, this is my Fluke multimeter that I use for most of my multimeting. And my internet sucks, so that's no good. Disassembly of, I should read these from the top down, shouldn't I? Okay, so and a bonus. Bruce recap the PSU for me too. Yes, and that's, I've now got the caps for those power supplies in my stocks, so I can. I've actually got one of those myself, so I should recap mine, shouldn't I? Because I have an Amiga 500 here. They were repairable in the 2000, especially the fact that I could pull the hard disk drive from the side and put it in the ready bit. Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah, disassembly of an iBook. If we're talking about the clamshell iBooks, yes, we all know how horrific they are to disassemble. No one likes disassembling those, myself included. It's very rewarding when you get it done, but it's just not a fun job to do. And we all blame Johnny Ive for that, don't we? It's like you design this thing with a hard drive, so difficult to get hold of. Okay. Don't tell any of the Mac jackers about that A500. Yeah, look, I picked it up as a, well, let's call it a contra deal. So I had I had someone sending me an Amiga to do, and I had no experience with Amigas at all. None at all. And then I had someone come here to get some recapping done. And while I was helping them get the stuff out of the boot of their car, I saw an Amiga 500. I said, oh, that's an Amiga. And this person said, yes, it is. I don't want it. Do you want it? And so I did a little contra deal with that person that I got the Amiga as payment for doing the recapping. So yeah, a little Amiga 500. I've put one of those, what are they called? GoTech floppy drive emulators in it, which is great. I've got a little USB stick that's absolutely full of Amiga games. The games on those things are quite incredible. Yeah. Oh, welcome back, Steve. Thank you. Yeah. So anyhow, look, I don't use it very much. I've got a aftermarket memory upgrade in it. Yeah, it's not. The Amigas aren't really my thing. But you know, I have recapped quite a few because, in particular, the Amiga 600 has terrible capacitor leakage. Amiga 1200 not so much, but still has capacitors that can leak. So, all right, let's get a little resistor here, shall we? And we shall do some resistance measurements. I'm just grabbing one here out of the blue. Let's grab this one. I've got no idea what it is. I have never memorized the color codes on resistors. I've never bothered to memorize them. I don't plan on memorizing them now, so we're just going to test the resistance with this now. So this is my fancy fluky fancy, and I'm getting 0.906 kiloohms. So there we go. That's what we're getting. Now, should we just look up these color bands and see what the measurement is? 0.906. So I'm going to look up these color bands on my trusty little software. I have Resistor Toolkit. I haven't got my phone. I didn't bring my phone with me, so I won't be doing it. So, okay. Brown, black, black, brown, white. Brown, black, black, brown, white. I'm sure there's one on the web. Let me have a look. We'll go here. Resistor color bands calculator. There we go. Okay. It's a 5-band. I need a 5-band. Color code calculator 4, 3, 4, and 5 band. Okay, so let's go here. 4 bands, let's go 5 bands. Let's go to first band is brown, black, black, brown, white. Calculate. Calculate. Error. Cannot calculate resistor in valid color bands. Oh, okay. Oh, it's I've done it around the wrong way. It's white, brown, black, black, brown, which is 910 ohms. So it was reading 906 or whatever, so that's pretty darn accurate. So there we go. It was nice that it told me that I had it around the wrong way, wasn't it? Yeah, color band test. Yeah, I just have reference material now. You know, I'm such a lazy person. I just look it up. All right, so we're reading around about 906 on that one. Let's see what we get on our cute little multimeter here. This is my little fancy portable guy. I'm just going to plonk him there. The leads aren't removable, but that's okay for a portable. I'm fine with that. Okay. Whoa. You can see it's a little bit slower to read, but it has read very, very closely. 902 kiloohms. The other one was reading about 906. So I'm pretty good with that. So yep, that's all great. Happy with that. What about some capacitance measurements? Shall I grab a capacitor? Shall I? I'll get my little tester here, and I will grab. Here we go. What have I got here? These are my 25 volt ones. I'm going to grab a 220 microfarad 25 volt. I'm going to drop that there because that's how we do things. I'm going to pop this in here. Come on, get in. I'm just going to have to snip this so that the leads are the same length. In we go. lock that down. This I made as a kit, by the way. I've mentioned this on my live streams before. It's a very handy little thing. Measures diodes, transistors, capacitors, did I say resistors? Transistors, resistors, diodes, capacitors. And this is telling me that this is a 249.1 microfarad. What was it? 220. So it's reading a little bit high, but I think it's still within spec. So let's try that again. And I think the battery's running a little bit low on this thing as well. So yeah, it's a 9-volt battery and it's reading 8.7. That's not too bad, I suppose. 248. Yeah, so again, it is reading a little bit high. It's a good quality one, though. It's a Nichicon. So let's now try it with the Fluky Dookie on that and that. Right, so let's see what he says. 250, 250, 254. Let's get the old, let's put this on. There we go. And then we've got that on capacitance there. And then we'll put that there and there. Oh, come on, stay still. These are so hard to control. Well, that's not right. You're wrong. Okay, well, at least it measures resistance, right? Well, that's not right. Oh, hang on. It's changing. It's saying 53.4 nanofarads. So, okay. Well, it's let's not recommend this multimeter then. No. Apart from being very, very cute and giving inaccurate capacitance readings. Right. Right. Right, okay. And then last thing I'm going to do is just, I've got 11 delicious volts here. And I'm just going to test the DC volts with this one. So let's just connect that there. Right, I'm just going to do it like that. 11.02. Happy with that. You can't see that because of the flare. And let's just go on to DC here. And we'll do this one. Connect. And this is saying 11.04. Okay, so we're quite happy with the, I haven't done the diode test, so I'm not going to do any more testing because I'm just going to bore everyone out of their brains. But the capacitance was way off. I don't know why that is, whether I'm using it wrong or something else going on there. I can tell you that I did actually have another multimeter that was the same. It used to just give really weird readings on capacitance, and I don't know if it's just a common issue, but that's that. All right, I'm going to go grab that board. Hopefully that UV solder mask has dried by now. I will be back in a minute. Still in, and now I'm well. Hello. So, as I have mentioned, hang on, sorry. Capacitor reading issue is just a fluke. Okay, let's have a look at this UV solder mask here, shall we? I'm just touching it with my finger to see if I get any green stuff, and I'm not, which means I'm quite happy with that curing. As you can see, oh, you can't see anything. As you can see, that did actually dry quite quickly in the sun. So Whereas under my UV lamp, it would probably take half an hour or more. That just took a matter of minutes out in the sun there. So it's time to put some capacitors back in place, and that's where the cheat sheet comes in. Recap a Mac. Grab yourself one of these. And let's have a look-see. We have got one 50 volt, 1 microfarad 50 volt. Where are my caps? Here. So let's get a 1 microfarad 50 volt from here. Hello, 1 microfarad 50 volt. Not many, I generally don't need to keep many of those, because the computers that do have a 1 microfarad 50 volt, they've generally only got one of them. So I don't go through that many of them. You know, it's like one per board type thing. And some of them don't have any at all. So this is this one here. It's the little guy. It's the little guy. Oh, I've got some solder blob there. Let's get rid of that. Rather not have any solder there. And then I'm going to plop my capacitor down. As I always mention in my videos, the tantalum capacitors have the stripe on the positive side. Electrolytic capacitors have the stripe on the negative side. This is decided by someone who decided to confuse us. Just someone being mean and horrible and making it so that if you don't know these things, you are more likely to make a mistake. So you have to know them. I should actually mention I did do that once myself. A long time ago, I might add. But I had done some recapping already. And when I did the recapping, I had gone in and I'd read up, and it's like, oh yes, okay, I know the positive side is the stripe and the negative is on the electrolytics. And then I came back and did another recapping job later on. Again, this is just my own stuff. This is other people. This is before I was doing it for other people. And I didn't check the reference material again. And so I did my next recap with every single capacitor I put on around the wrong way. Every single one. Yeah, that had to be resolved. Felt a little bit stupid after that. Just a little bit. So I've managed to get some solder on this pad. I want this to be cleaned up before I put a new component on it. Reading. I've done that. Oh, thank you, Jay, once again. He really should be my agent. Tempered tantalum. It's a shocker. You should be ashamed of yourself, Distro Hopper. My goodness. Right, and all the rest of these are 16 microfarad, sorry, 47 microfarad 16. When I used to do my early recapping guides, I put the voltage first and then the capacitance second. And I don't know why, but I did. I've updated them all now around the other way. But so I read these and I go, oh, that's 16 microfarad, 47 volt. No, it's not. It's 16 volt, 47 microfarad. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them. So let's grab them. Now, as I've mentioned before, I always take these out only a couple at a time. If I pull out too many caps in one go, the capacitor fairies steal them while my back is turned. And then I lose them. And I don't like losing the capacitors. So I've just taken 3 out now, and I'm going to do these ones. These are the ones all around the sound chip. There we go. And then we'll plonk these in place. Tweezers are really, really important tools when you're doing this stuff. I should just mention that because I have all of these fancy tools in there, but people may not necessarily think about the tweezers. The tweezers are probably, you know, the microscope's probably the most important to me. You can do this stuff without a microscope. These components are quite large. But the microscope is really important for me, just number one, because my eyes are getting really lousy as I get old, and also because I'm showing you guys what I'm doing, and so the microscope helps me do that. But so you've got the microscope. We've obviously talked about things like the soldering iron, the flux, and that sort of stuff. But tweezers are as important as those other items. Just being able to have a good quality pair of tweezers to hold the component in place when you're soldering it, it's super, super important. As I mentioned before when I was talking about the temperature of my soldering iron, you can see that when I do these, I'm holding these in place, I'm using the flux. The flux is going to help pass the solder from my soldering iron tip onto the pad and the component, because I've actually got some solder melted onto the tip of the iron. I just did that off camera sneakily when you weren't looking. So I'm stuck. So I grab some solder here. I just get a little bit on the end of my soldering iron tip, and then I hold the component in place, and then I apply it to the pad, and the solder just moves from the iron onto the pad using that flux as a conduit sort of thing. I always try and get these as straight as possible, because if you end up with a crooked one there, it sticks out like something hanging off a dog when you look at it from a distance. So I always try and get them straight. See, this one's slightly crooked. I'm going to just try and bend that into shape there. And as I mentioned before, I have my soldering iron on quite a high temp. But you can see that I spend very little time on each of these pads. I basically just slide the iron across really quickly, like that. So I'm not leaving heat lingering on those pads for too long. For anyone who is watching this video who watches lots of my videos, I'm sorry that I'm saying all this stuff that you've probably already heard about 50 times, but I do like to mention these things for the benefit of people who might be watching for the first time. And who might be looking to pick up some tips because they're going to be doing their own recapping, or their own soldering, whatever the case may be. So I do like to impart some of that knowledge if I can. So some more flux. Let's grab another cap. No clean. Oh yeah, no clean flux basically means, when they put that on there, that means that if you leave it on the board, it's not conductive or corrosive, and so it's not going to do damage by staying on the board. You still got to clean it off though. You can't leave it on there. I mean, the problem is that you could have some moisture trapped underneath it or something like that, and then it's going to corrode. Yeah, the flux, it's no clean, because there are other types of flux. There are things called active fluxes, and you're more likely to use those on soldering larger metals or brazing, those sorts of things. And they have the active fluxes are actually corrosive. So they take a little layer off the top of the metal that you're soldering to. That's how they clean them off. Now, so this is how I get a bit of solder onto the end of the tip, just like that. So those solders, because they are because they are corrosive, they have to come off after you've used them, because otherwise they will just sit there and eat into the joins, and then whatever you've soldered is going to fall apart. So it moved. So then, so that's obviously a really important thing if you're using an active flux. Now, you would never use an active flux for soldering electronics, ever, ever, ever. You could use a Rosen flux, that come in the tub, or as we like to refer to them in our little soldering group, rotting meat flux. We say that because we don't think those fluxes are very good. They're better than nothing, but I would, a lot of people would actually say for this sort of work, this kind of flux is overkill. This is the sort of flux you might use for soldering a BGA or ball grid array chip, something like that. It's for really fine micro soldering. But you know what? This stuff works so well. I will not be told. I will not be told. Right, so we're working our way through them. As you can see, once we get to this stage, the caps go on fairly quickly. It's all that prep work that takes the time, and then of course me just rabbling on about anything I want to talk about. But yeah, getting everything clean, getting it all ready for the components to go on, that's the really important part. And it's doing that prep that then makes these components go on so easily. I'm going to mention this again, even though I do mention it quite a few times in my videos, and I mention them, and even people who watch the videos who will remain nameless then contact me and ask me these things, even though I've already told them during my videos. This capacitor, if you have a look on the top, says 476. The first two digits are kind of the capacitance. The six after it is telling how many zeros after those first two numbers. So it's 47, and then you can see there's a 6, so it's 47 with 6 zeros after it. And what that gives you is the measurement in picofarads. And so this is 476, so that's 47 million picofarads. That works out at 47 microfarads. So that's how you can work out the capacitance. And that. I didn't clean 3 pads, by the way, so I just wanted to let you know that after I put this cap on, I've then got to go and clean 3 more pads. So I had a feeling like I had done a few less than 10 when I was doing it. It's like, my guide says there are 10 of them. Have I done 10 already? Have I? No, I haven't. I've done 7. I'll make sure I do these last 3 nice and quick. They're all next to each other, so I should be able to do them quick. Because I need to go eat something. It's lunchtime here. And I didn't have much of a breakfast, to be honest, either. A few pieces of fruit. I love fruit. Okay. So this is the one sitting on top of that UV solder mask dried on there. That stuff goes rock hard once it's stuck on. In actual fact, the only way you can get it off once it's on is by kind of scraping it off. It is on there once it's there. So I can put this into the ultrasonic cleaner without any fear of that mask coming off. Okay. Only had an ultrasonic cleaner made for Christmas. Yeah, look, they're so important. I'm actually going to make my own. I've bought the tub because when you buy these ones, it's really hard to get one that's going to do all the sizes of board. So I have actually bought a big stainless steel tub with a lid. It's actually one that you use for keeping food warm. But it's a very good quality tub. I'm going to build a base for it. I'm going to buy a bunch of ultrasonic transducers, and I'm going to make my own ultrasonic cleaner that's designed to fit these big boards that I use. So I will probably be doing lots of YouTubing about that when I get there. I'm just holding off doing it at the moment because the transducers are going to cost me about $200 and something, and I just I would like to save a little bit for that first. I've got a bunch of recapping I'm doing at the moment. I'll be getting paid for those very soon, and I might use that money to buy all my transducers. And yes, I will hopefully make my own ultrasonic cleaner that will clean well, doing what I want and whatnot, and things and stuff. These are the ones that I didn't clean before, by the way, in my foolishness, not paying attention to what I'm doing and all that sort of stuff. But as I say, they're all together. I should get these done nice and quick. Then we can get back into the component replacement. Let's get rid of this stupid component adhesive. Those little white dots that you see there, that's component adhesive. Holds the components in position before it gets soldered. So the components get put in place by a robot, and then and they're held in there with the component adhesive, and then the board goes through a solder bath and the solder sticks to all the exposed pins. So that's how they used to do it with the automation. It's how they still do some of them today. So just letting you know. Older and larger wires. Flux paste is just as easy with wire. Yep. Cool. What is the best solder and flux? It's kind of a it is a personal thing. You could probably talk to someone that would swear blind over the solder or flux that they're using. When it comes to solder, generally a very well-known and reputable brand is Kester, Kester. So it's not particularly cheap, but it is a good quality product. So I am quite happy to recommend Kester. It's what I'm using here. And then as for the flux, yes, the old Amtech NC599 V2TF I think is a very, very good flux. It's one that I really like using. I can't buy it locally. I have to get this stuff brought in from the States. But to be honest, I like using it that much that I would rather use this and get it brought in from the States than buy a local product. I have tried some other fluxes. I did find one that I quite liked that I was able to buy locally, and then it got discontinued. and I said, thank you very much, you rotten people, for discontinuing this product after me doing all this research to find a flux that I like, and then you take it away from me. Who do you think you are? I went all Karen on them. No, I didn't really. Yeah, so I buy the Amtech Flux from the States now. I buy it via eBay or Amazon, whichever one. Yeah, and I've never had any trouble. When I order this Flux from the States, I usually get it in a week. I don't know which delivery company they're using, but whichever one it is, it's good. Because, yeah, I mean, it's really... It took me longer to get some stuff locally than that. I had to get some UV cleaning fluid, and there was problems with the delivery coming from Queensland, which is the next state above me. It took forever to get here. Just notice there's still a bit of black stuff on here, so I'm just giving it a little bit of a scrape with the scalpel just to clear off any of that. I just want these to look really nice, and then I'll just hit it with a little bit of extra solder. Get it all ready. Scrapey, scrape, scrape. Okie dokie. I would like to offer my apologies for not cleaning these before, and so now I'm making you poor people sit and watch me clean again. Dear, such a cruel human. Okay, now this is, I think, the last 3 caps, and then we just have the axials. 2 axials, nice and easy to put them on, and then we're done. So, grab these 3 caps out of here. Oh, and we will, of course, test it. I did bring my SE30 case down so that we can test it. Oh, I just pulled 4 out. I only need 3. I feel like I'm being visited by a bird. I don't know if it's burning or if it's a pigeon. But I've actually got a chicken that I would love to show on a live stream once, but I don't think it would work very well because she's not as friendly as Bernadette is. For those who are watching this stream for the first time, I have chickens, and every now and again I end up with a chicken on the live stream. Yeah, but I have a blind chicken, and she's huge. She's a Sussex, and she is massive. She's just gigantic. She's got about 3 times the size of Bernadette, for anyone who's ever seen Bernadette on my streams. But she's blind. Yeah, so she's a little bit of a novelty. She seems to get by okay. No trouble getting food or anything like that. But, yeah, blind as. Okay, do you use an ESR capacitor meter for testing caps in circuit? If so, then what kind? Yes, I do. Having said that, I've never been particularly happy with the results I get from it. I think it's because it's cheapy. I probably should buy a better one. I will often end up taking capacitors out and then testing them, you know, because for that reason. But yes, I do. And the one that I have is, I'll show it to you. As I say, I can't openly recommend this to you. I'm just telling you which one I use, because as I say, I've never been particularly happy with the results I get from it. It's one like this. What is it? MESR 100. It's got like a little, I don't know, like an Arduino or something inside it, or I don't know. It's because they're all, you know, most of them, even when they're in different case, they've still got the same operating system inside here. I don't know what's inside them, but anyhow. So that's what I use, but I don't particularly like it. So just going out there and saying that. Off. Thanks for using. Goodbye. It actually says that on the screen. Thanks for using. Goodbye. I didn't use it. I just switched it on. It's misinformed. Okay. Another capacitor. Anyone who would like a little bit of information about capacitors and what they do, I do recommend watching that video that Crazy Ken from Computer Clan did yesterday. I think he did a sterling job of explaining what some of these components do inside a computer. Now, he did get most of that information from me, but that's okay. I think he did a really good job using some little fancy graphics of going in and explaining it all. So, yeah, check that video out if you have a moment. It's not too long. It's got the 8-bit guy in it. Everyone seems to love the 8-bit guy. I've never met him, so. Got a funny voice. But that's not his fault. Can't make fun of people for things they can't change, can you? Bid you all adieu. Good luck. Okay, Jay, thank you very much for joining. See you later. I would really love to have a chat with you about your microscope woes. So maybe we get a chance to do that tomorrow. We'll do a little bit of a Skype call or something, Jay, and we'll see if we can get a few things ruled out with your microscope to see if we can get it looking, you know, perfect, which is what we're aiming for. But thank you very much for joining, and thank you for doing all those little posts and reminding people about my website and all that. So much appreciated. So evening, sleep well, enjoy X-Files. Right, so okay, I have the same one. The cables are too short. It's a really interesting thing with an ESR meter is the cables kind of need to be short on the cheap ones, because the longer the cables, the more it impacts on the ESR reading. So that's kind of why they have tiny short cables. They suck. What's happened to my glove? Oh, okay. See you later, Oz RetroComp. Thanks for joining. See, people drop off when I take too long. You don't even get to see it tested. You have to come back and watch it and see it working. So, but thank you very much for joining Oz RetroComp. Thank you, Tone, for joining, and I shall see you later. All right, so we are actually getting to the home stretch here. I've gone in and I've replaced all of the surface mount caps. We've just got to put the axials on. So I'm going to do that now. Now, oh, thank you very much for that, Michael. That's very nice of you to say. Right, so what we're going to do here is, oh, look, I missed one right there. One more. I'm just missing caps all over the place at the moment, aren't I? Okay. As mentioned before, this particular cap, the original cap, this is the one that leaks all over UE8. So, yeah. Oh, Chris, not bad. Thank you very much for that. Oh, look at all that money rolling in. Thank you very much. I shall buy myself a hamburger. To say, heading out, Bruce. Thanks for the great channel content, and again, have a great weekend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I do appreciate it. Thank you very much, and thank you for stopping by. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your perseverance. But boy, oh boy, I've been going for a long time. I said to my wife, it'll be a quick one. Oh, I'll only be on for a couple of hours. What time is it now? 1:30, so it's 2.5 hours now. Oh dear, let's see if we can get this happening in less than 3, shall we? Right, so always go in and check the capacitors. Make sure I've put the right ones in the right places. Yes, 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 and yes. Make sure that the polarities are correct. Yes, 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 yes. Make sure that they're soldered on both sides. Yes, 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 yes. Let's do the same on this one. Yes, and yes. And then yes, 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 yes. Okay, all looking good. Yes, yes. Good. Good, good, good. Now, of course, I am going to test this when I finish it, but just we do need to keep in mind that this hasn't been cleaned, so it could well not work because we may still have some leaky electrolyte hanging around. Look at that shiny CPU. Shiny. All right, so the last two capacitors we've got, they're both 16 volts, I think. 470 microfarad 16 and 220 microfarad 16. I generally replace them with 25 volt instead of 16. Let me just grab some. Whoopsie. making a nice big precarious pile there. Axials always seem to end up on the bottom, I don't know why. Okay, so okay going up in voltage, but not okay going up in capacitance. So, and not okay going down in voltage. So if you're going to replace 16 volt, you can go up to a 25. So this is 470/25. Is that one there? 470/25. Yep, got one there. And then a 220/25. 220/25. 220/25 there. You can still buy axial capacitors, but I don't know for how much longer, because generally no one builds anything with them anymore. So it's great that you can get them, but yeah. Now I like to try and bend these pins in such a way that they will sit really nicely on the board, because I just like these things to look pretty. And I also like to sit them on the board so that the writing on the capacitor is facing upwards. Makes it easier for the next person when they're replacing. They can go, oh, that's what I need to replace it with. So bend these pins, feed this through here. These are electrolytic, so aluminium electrolytic, so they have the stripe pointing to the negative. So there we go. I'm going to pop that in there. I should really go to this view, that shouldn't I? Now I'm just going to bend these pins back a little bit. Bendy, bendy. Then I'm going to solder those in. So am I even going to bother with the microscope for that? I'm not sure I should. So let me get my big thing of solder for the through hole. I will use my goggles. I'll use my sort of goggles and my nude eye. Always remember, when you're using solder that has a flux core, that flux core burns away very quickly. So unless you are actually applying the solder to the component while you're soldering, that flux will just burn away. So you've got to actually utilize that flux while it's melting. So get rid of a pin. Get rid of a pin. That's looking good. I like the look of that one. Did I get them around the right way? I did. I have a tendency, when I get capacitors around the wrong way, I tend to do it more with these axials by accident. I don't know why, but you know. So there's this one here. Is someone messaging me? Am I being messaged? Whoa, what have I done? Done. Okay, so positive that way, negative that way. Yeah, I mean, I did a recap relatively recently. I think it was even on a live stream, and I put the caps on, and then I got to the end, and I was like, I'll put one of them on backwards. Felt very silly. I had a board come in where someone had been fiddling with it, and they had clearly taken some components off and then put them back on again. And they put one back on the wrong way. So I'm glad I spotted that one. I don't know if it got started up with the cap on the wrong way. Okay. There we have it. Last component. Time for testing. Here it is, folks. Recapped SE30 board. Isn't that lovely? So I've got one down here, got one down there. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 10 47s and one. Okay. Now, bear with me for just a moment. I will be. Actually, no, all good, all good. I thought someone was coming to talk to me, but it looks like they're just walking past, so that's fine. Okay. So, we now have to test this. That's all fine. I'm just going to put the RAM back onto it. I'll only stick 4 sticks of RAM on there rather than a whole lot, because I will have to take them off again to clean it. So, let me just grab all the bits for it, which I think I put up here from memory. Yes, I did. Just there. Not going to worry about putting a battery in or anything like that. Just need the ROM. So I'm just going to make this straight. It's got to be neat. It's got to be neat. Need the ROM sim. ROM sim. In we go. And then I'll just grab 4 of these. These have to be put in 4s. You can't have just 1 or 2 in there. You've got to have, there are 2 banks of 4 here, and so those banks need to have, you can leave a bank of 4 empty. If you're going to have a bank of 4 empty, you've got to have the front 4 filled. And then obviously the 4 that are in there all have to be the same. But you can have, like, I don't know, 4 4s in here and 4 1s in there. You can do that. I love how cheap RAM is these days. I mean, it's, some people say, oh, it's still expensive compared to other RAM. But compared to what you used to pay for this sort of RAM back in the day, and I have got 4 16s and 4 1s in my SE30, which gives me a total of 68 megabytes of RAM. And that's ample for an SE30 in my opinion. Sure, you can take it up to 128, but what are you going to do on that SE30 that requires 128 megabytes rather than 68? You know, I mean, you're going to retouch and Photoshop on a monochrome screen? That's my opinion. I think 68 is a lot of RAM for an SE30. And I've got the other 16 in my Macintosh 2CI, and I've got another 16 in an SI. So, oh, another 4 16s. So, I like to load these up with RAM. Right, so here's my SE30, my one. Yeah, they take a really long time to boot when you load them up, because these will do a RAM test when you switch them on. So you switch them on and you're just staring at this blank screen while it's doing this RAM test. This isn't done up. I don't need my talks. It's not done up. I leave this one generally undone all the time because I have to open it up so often. Do they know Bob Ross in Australia? Now, that's an interesting thing you should mention. Ultimately, yes, we know who Bob Ross is. He was a guy that used to have a TV show in the States where he taught people how to paint, I think. But it was never aired in this country. So at the end of the day, I know who Bob Ross is, but I have never watched any Bob Ross because, as I say, we never got the show out here. So it's a little bit like Jeopardy. You know, I mean, I know all the story behind Jeopardy and the way you have to answer the answers as a question or something like that. But we don't get Jeopardy out here. I think we might now. I think they might play it now, but you know, like in the olden days, we never got Jeopardy out here. Right, I've got a network card in my SE30, so I'm just whipping that out so that I can get the logic board out. This particular network card will work in a Macintosh 2 SI as well. As you can see, that if you plug this into an SI, it has this pass-through for the PDS slot to then come out the side, so you can stick a card in that way in a Macintosh 2 SI. It also has this slot here for putting an FPU in, which again is applicable for a 2 SI. No point in putting an FPU in this because the SE30 already has an FPU. So, but anyhow, I think it's an Asanti one, that one. So that's all good. That's mine. Don't want to lose that. We're going to just unplug some things here. I'm going to unplug the SCSI. Going to unplug the floppy. But when it comes to unplugging the power umbilical cord thingy, I'm going to actually take the board out a little bit first. Stop the stream, watch Bob Ross. We'll wait. Why? Yes. Do you believe in ESD damage? Yeah, damage can be done by electrostatic. Absolutely. I've never really had any trouble with it. I'm not saying that I don't take anti-static precautions. This is my board, by the way. This is the second revision. Oh, sorry, the third revision. This one has a soldered-on chip there rather than the socketed one. And as you can see, this little capacitor is here. On the older board, the capacitor sits down there, so in a slightly different spot. Here we've got my 4 16s, and actually these might be 2s. Well, there might be ones, but I think there might be twos. So I might even have even more RAM in this. So we've got the 16s there, and they're potentially 4 ones, but they might be 4 twos as well. As you can see, this has all been recapped. There's a little bit of muck going along around here because I recapped this originally when I didn't really do a very good job of it, and then I went back and redid it, but I had a little bit of a mess there. And there, yes, we've got a busted bit of busted clip there for the RAM, so that's got a hot glue on there, and we've got a busted clip here for the ROM, but I haven't got any hot glue on that one. But anyhow, that's my board, so yay. Love your fantastic work. Question: do you use a fume extractor, and which one do you recommend? No, I don't, and that's a bad thing. First of all, I'm in a shed, as you can see, and I have quite good ventilation in here. The other is just over my left shoulder. You'll see that I've got a fan blowing on me, and so I have that fan blowing all the time, so any fumes that come up kind of get blown out that way, and there's a door just there, so the fumes can just go escape. It is not ideal. I do have a fume extractor. I've ended up moving it from this desk because it was taking up too much space. Oh, no, I haven't. It's here somewhere, I think. Or is it? Anyhow, I do have a fume extractor. Just one of those cheap ones with a carbon filter. They're not that good, but they're still better than nothing. What I am planning to do is build my own fume extractor. I've actually got a couple of these fans. These are 240 volt fans that I've got here. I use them for something else. And I've got 2 of them. They really blow quite a lot of air. I'm planning to put a little hole in this shed with a little sort of shieldy thing on there, and I'm going to run some hose in here, and I will set up my own. I'm going to actually make my own fume extractor. So there's the little fume extractor story. If you want the big industrial fume extractors, like I think Hacko might make one, they're really expensive. I don't doubt how good they are, how effective they are, but they're just really, really expensive. So, okay. It's almost midnight. Sorry, stop the stream. Watch Bob Ross. No, I'm not gonna. Airing Bob Ross and Jeopardy here in Oz right now on SBS Viceland. So there you go. Yes, I'm sure I'd seen Jeopardy on there, but yeah, never seen Bob Ross. Okay. I've had a few people mention Bob Ross. Do I sound like him or something? And I'm sure I don't look like him. I don't have enough hair. Soldering and using compressed air. Yep. Okay. So, right. God, I'm really dragging this thing out. Sorry, guys. Going to connect up my speaker. I do like to have a speaker connected so I can test the sound. And then I'm going to connect up my little power cable here, if I can get him in there. There we go. So let's see if we can get that in. These are really fiddly, by the way, putting these in. Putting the logic boards into these just sucks. I haven't found an elegant way of doing it with an SE30. Okay, then we slide that in there, and we pop that in there, and then we put that down there. I'm not going to bother to connect up the floppy because I'm not going to connect the floppy. Oh, I didn't bring my SCSI to SD down here, so I can't boot it up. I think there's a system on this, so we'll see. Okay, that's connected to the SCSI. We've got the power. As I say, I'm not going to bother with the floppy drive. And then I'm going to get a keyboard, which I've just got down here. I just need to get the keyboard cable, which is here. We're getting to that time, folks. We're getting to that time. Okay, then I have a wire, and inside this wire I have 240 of the finest Australian volts. In she goes. Are we ready? Dun 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 dun. As I did mention before, this hasn't been cleaned, so there's a good chance it's not going to work, but we can be hopeful. Ready, and... Hey, what a lovely little chime sound. Did you hear that? I don't know if you heard that. Where's the speaker? The speaker's over here, I think, on my side. And look at that. Now, anyone who might be observing this geometry here, you'll see that I've got the screen stretched all the, way out to all edges of this. This is not how they're meant to be adjusted. They are meant to be adjusted with a little bit of black all the way around. And the reason for that is that these screens are designed as a WYSIWYG screen. What you see is what you get. They're designed to actually be 72 pixels per inch, and if you actually put a ruler up against it, if you were to draw 1 inch in a drawing application, it will be 1 inch on the screen. So the stuff on the screen is meant to be real size, so you can look at fonts at the size they're going to print out. So by stretching this out, I'm making this slightly out from WYSIWYG, but I kind of like it this way, and it's mine, so I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. Okay. Well, it works. Get my little mouse here. We'll just go up and have a look about this Macintosh. Sorry about the flicker. I do actually have the ability to sync my camera to the refresh rate of these screens, but it will involve me getting up and I can't be bothered. Okay, 4 megabytes of RAM. That's what we're expecting. And then we've got Macintosh SE 30. I think I've got, yep, system 7.1, which is my operating system of choice on a Macintosh SE 30, I might mention. I just think it runs swifter with it. I know you can put 7.5 on it, and if you're someone who might be wanting to do a bit of web browsing or something like that on a really old browser, you're probably more likely to go along the path of 7.5. I'm really not interested in browsing the web with the Macintosh SE 30, so I have it on 7.1. I do like to be able to connect to FTP servers, so I have Open Transport version 1.3 installed, which enables us to get the more familiar, where are we? Let's just go to control panels. Sorry, I'm having trouble with the mouse here. Control panels. It allows you to get the familiar kind of network control panel rather than that Mac TCP thing, which is a nightmare to work with. So I would generally recommend, if you are using an SE30 and you're thinking about what system to put on it, I actually think system 7.1 works really well. Then you install Open Transport if you've got a network card. That'll allow you to jump onto FTPs and stuff like that if you want to download stuff from an FTP server. Yeah, you have a bit of fun with these things. There, you know, some great games you can play on them. You know, get all nostalgic. I mean, every time I sit in front of one of these little black and white screens with the really fine pixel, because the quality, the pitch of the pixels, 72 dpi, was just beyond anything at the time. And when you sat down in front of a Mac, the original Mac I'm talking about, by the time SE30s came out, there were color ones and stuff around, but the original Mac was, the high-res screen was just something extraordinary. And every time I sit down in front of one of these, it just sort of, it gives me a real kick. I love them. So, okay, so let me just have a quick look here. I'm just going to jump. I'm going to have a just quick catch up of the chat here, and then I will sign off, and I'll let people get to bed for those people in the parts of the world where it's extremely late, and I can get out there and have something to eat. Okay. Okay. Your sound is with a fan running behind you. Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why the sound is reasonably good. Well, there are two reasons. First of all, I'm using two microphones at the moment. I'm using this one here, and I'm using this one here, and this lapel microphone. And these are all ones that are designed to, what's the word they use for them? Is a condenser mic. They're designed to actually pick up sound from very close to them. So I mean, even if I turn on the ultrasonic cleaner, which makes a racket, it's loud as anything. It's not too bad through the microphone. For me, that is so loud. It's so annoyingly loud. But I know you can still hear it, but it's not as loud as I'm hearing it because it is the way it's microphone. So, God, I get sidetracked easily, don't I? Okay. Mirror. Going with the audio. Mirror looking at mirror loop. Mirror looking at mirror loop going with the audio. Oh no, that's me. Okay. All right. So Bob Ross is to painting, Bob Bruce is to recapping. Do I look like Phil Donahue? Oh, okay, interesting. Someone once told me I look like a fat John Malkovich. So how about that? All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for everyone for joining. I do appreciate you sticking around for all this time. We have hit the 3-hour mark. How exciting is that? It's never a good one unless it's 3 hours. So anyhow, we did get the SE30 recapped and working. So at least that provides some closure to people who have been watching. I thank you all very much for taking the time to spend with me. I thank people for the super chats they sent through, and I will see you at the next one. I hope to have a live stream next weekend. I probably won't get a chance to do it before then, and I will see you all next time. So thanks again, and goodbye.